Hi guys, tonight we drift quietly into the world of the Lighthouse Keeper, seeing how they stayed warm in their stone towers during the biggest storms. The sun is sinking low over the edge of the world. The air is turning very cold, Rimmer. It feels like sharp ice against your cheeks as you stand by the water. The wind is coming off the sea like a cold grey river, finding every tiny gap in your thick clothes. You can hear the dry salt crunching under your boots as you walk across the wet rocks. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and if you want to let me know where you are listening from and what time it is where you are. I always love seeing those little snapshots of the world. Now dim the lights and let the story begin. You are standing on a small, rocky island far away from the mainland. The sky is the colour of a bruised plum, turning darker with every breath you take. To your left and your right, the ocean is waking up. The waves are not small anymore. They are growing tall and white, like giant teeth biting at the shore. You feel the spray of the salt water on your face. It is cold and tingly, making your skin feel tight. You reach up to pull your hat down lower over your ears. It is a thick hat made of dark wool, and it smells faintly of old wood smoke and the sea. In front of you stands the tower. It is a giant pillar of grey stone, reaching up into the clouds. This is your home for the next many weeks. It is called a rock station because there is no grass here, no trees, and no soil. There is only the hard, black rock and the grey tower. You carry a heavy bag on your shoulder. Inside the bag are your things: a small book, some clean socks, and a tin of tea leaves. The bag feels heavy, but you are glad for the weight. It makes you feel solid as the wind tries to push you toward the water. You look up at the top of the tower. High above, the glass room is dark. It looks like a giant eye that is closed for the moment, but soon you will make it wake up. You begin to walk toward the base of the tower. The ground here is very slippery. The sea has left a coat of green weed on the stones. You have to move slowly, placing one foot down and then the other. You do not want to slip. If you fell here, the cold water would pull you away into the deep. You take a deep breath and feel the damp air fill your lungs. It smells like wet stone and salt. You reach the bottom of the iron ladder. This ladder is bolted right into the side of the stone. It is cold to the touch. You reach out your hand, which is covered by a thick leather glove. You can feel the rough shape of the metal through the leather. You begin to climb. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. The wind is louder now that you are off the ground. It whistles through the rungs of the ladder, making a sound like a low flute. You keep your eyes on the stone in front of you. Each block of stone is huge. These stones were cut by hand a long time ago. Men worked for years to build this tower, fitting the pieces together so tightly that not even a drop of water can get through the gaps. As you climb higher, you feel the spray of a big wave hit your back. It is heavy and cold, soaking into your outer coat. This coat is your most important piece of clothing. It is called an oilskin. An oilskin is a heavy coat made of strong cloth that has been soaked in linseed oil. The oil makes the water slide right off, like water off a duck's back. You feel the weight of the wet oilskin, but you stay dry underneath. It is your shield against the ocean. You reach the small metal platform at the top of the ladder and stand in front of the heavy door. The door is made of thick iron. It is painted a deep red, but the salt has made the paint dull and rough. You reach into your pocket and find the key. It is a big, heavy key made of brass. It feels cold and smooth in your hand. You put the key into the lock and turn it. It makes a loud clack sound that echoes against the stone. You lean your shoulder against the door and push. It is very heavy and it resists you at first, but then it swings open. You step inside and quickly pull the door shut behind you. Suddenly, the world changes. The roar of the wind becomes a low hum. The crashing of the waves becomes a soft thud. You are inside the throat of the tower. It is very dark in here, and the air feels still. It is not warm yet, but it is dry. You stand there for a moment in the dark, just listening to your own breath. The silence is very deep. It is the kind of silence you only find in a place made of thick stone. You reach into your pocket and pull out your torch. You click it on, and a beam of yellow light cuts through the dark. The walls are curved because the tower is a perfect circle. You can see the stairs winding up and up into the shadows. Before you start your climb, you take off your wet oilskin. You hang it on a large iron hook near the door. You watch a few drops of salt water fall onto the floor. Drip, drip, drip. It is the only sound in the room. You feel a sense of peace now. Outside, the storm is growing, the wind is beginning to scream, and the sea is turning into a monster. But you are inside. You are safe in your stone fortress. You look at the walls. They are over 5 feet thick at the bottom. Nothing can break them. You run your hand over the stone. It feels cold and slightly damp, but it also feels very strong. You know that as long as you are inside these walls, the ocean cannot touch you. You think about the history of this place. This tower was built by a man named Robert Stevenson. He was a very clever man who knew how to build things that would last forever. He used granite, which is one of the hardest stones in the world. He made sure the stones were shaped like puzzle pieces so they would lock together. Even when the biggest waves hit the tower, it does not move. It stands perfectly still, protecting the men inside. You take a moment to just be still. You reflect on how small you are compared to the tower, and how small the tower is compared to the sea. It is a lonely job, being the watcher of the night, but it is a good job. You are the one who keeps the ship safe. You are the one who stays awake while the rest of the world sleeps in their soft beds on the land. You pick up your bag and start to walk toward the stairs. Your boots make a hollow sound on the stone steps. Thump, thump, thump. You begin the long journey to the top. There are over 100 steps to climb before you reach the living room, and even more to reach the light. You do not hurry. You move with a slow, steady rhythm. You have all night, and the storm is just beginning. You feel the muscles in your legs working, and you start to feel a little bit of warmth spreading through your body. The cold of the island is fading away, replaced by the quiet work of the night shift. You stand with your back against the heavy iron door. You have just shut out the wild world of the ocean. For a moment you do not move, you just breathe. The air inside the base of the tower is different from the air outside. Outside, the air is thin and fast, whipped into a frenzy by the storm. Here, the air is thick and still. It smells of old things. It smells of damp stone, iron, and a hint of the oil used to keep the hinges from rusting. It is a heavy smell, but it is not bad. It is the smell of a place that has stood its ground for a long time. You reach out and touch the wall next to the door. This is your home now, and you want to feel its strength. The wall is made of granite. Granite is a very hard grey stone that comes from deep inside the earth. It is much stronger than the bricks used to build houses in the town. You run your fingers over the surface. It is not smooth like a piece of glass. It is rough and grainy. You can feel the tiny bumps and dips in the stone, even though the wall looks flat from a distance. Up close it has a landscape of its own. The stone is cold. It is so cold that it feels like it is sucking the heat right out of your fingertips. But it is a dry cold. The walls are so thick that the water from the waves cannot soak through. You look at the thickness of the wall where the door is set. You stretch out your arm, reaching as far as you can. Your arm is not long enough to reach from one side of the wall to the other. In this part of the lighthouse, the walls are over 5 feet thick. That is as thick as a tall person is tall. Imagine a wall so wide that you could lie down on top of it, and your head and feet would not hang over the edges. This thickness is what keeps you safe. When a big wave hits the outside of the tower, it hits with the weight of 100 lorries. If this were a normal house, it would be crushed in a second. But here, the stone just watches the wave break. You can feel a very tiny shake in the floor, a soft hum that goes up through the soles of your boots. It is not a scary shake. It is a reminder of how much power is moving outside. It is like the purr of a very large, sleeping animal. You look closely at the gaps between the giant stones. You can see that they are not just stacked one on top of the other like blocks. A long time ago, the men who built this tower used a special trick. They carved each stone so that it had a shape like a bird's tail. This is a simple historical fact. They called it dovetailing. Each stone locks into the stone next to it, and the stone above it, and the stone below it. They are all tied together in a giant stone knot. Because of this, the tower is not just a pile of rocks. It is one single solid piece of stone from the bottom to the top. It cannot be knocked down because there is no way for the stones to slide apart. You take your torch and shine the light along the curve of the wall. The wall is covered in something called lime wash. This is a micro-history detail. Lime wash is a simple kind of paint made from crushed white rock and water. The keepers put it on the walls to keep the rooms looking clean and bright. Because the tower is so dark inside, the white walls help to catch any bit of light and spread it around. You can see the brush marks in the white paint. It makes the stone look softer, almost like a piece of white cloth stretched over a frame. You see a small flake of the paint peeling off near the floor. You pick it up and crush it between your thumb and finger. It turns back into a fine white dust. You begin to walk around the edge of the room. This bottom level is mostly used for storage. You see large wooden crates stacked against the curve of the wall. These crates hold extra food, tools, and the heavy chains used for the boats. The wood of the crates is dark and old. You can see words painted on them in big black letters. Stores and handle with care. There is a sense of order here. Everything has its place. In a lighthouse, you cannot have a mess. If there is a mess, you might trip in the dark when you are in a hurry. You find comfort in the way the crates are lined up so neatly. You stop and lean your forehead against the stone. You close your eyes for a moment of silence. You listen. From this far down, you cannot hear the wind screaming. You only hear a deep, low thumping sound. Thud, thud, thud. It is the sound of the deep ocean hitting the rocks deep below the water. It sounds like a giant drum being played a mile away. You feel the vibration in your skull. It is a very old sound. This rock has been hearing that sound for thousands of years. The tower has been hearing it for 100, and you are here now, listening to it too. You feel a deep sense of respect for the men who put these stones here. They had to work in a freezing cold, lifting these heavy rocks with nothing but ropes and their own strong arms. They did it so that you could stand here tonight, warm and dry. You feel like a tiny guest inside a giant's ribcage. The tower is holding you, protecting you from the wild winter gale that wants to blow everything away. You pull your hand away from the wall. Your fingers are a bit numb from the cold stone, so you rub them together. You look up at the ceiling. It is made of iron beams that stretch across the circle. Above that is the floor of the next level. There are many levels to go. Each level is a little bit smaller than the one below it, because the tower gets thinner as it goes up. This shape helps the wind slide around the tower instead of pushing against it. It is a very clever way to build a house in the middle of the sea. You think about your bedroom, which is much higher up. You think about the small bed with its heavy blankets and the little stove that will soon be burning with a bright orange fire. But for now, you are happy to just stand here in the base of the tower. You are getting your sea legs. This means you are getting used to the way the tower moves and sounds. You are no longer a person from the land. You are a keeper of the light. You pick up your bag again. It feels a little lighter now that you are inside. You look at the heavy iron door one last time. You check the bolts to make sure they are tight. They are. The world outside is gone. There is only you and the stone now. You turn toward the stairs. They are made of the same grey granite as the walls. They are narrow, and they curve around the inside of the tower like a spiral. You place your foot on the first step. It is solid. It does not creak or groan. It is as firm as the earth itself. You begin to climb, leaving the bottom floor behind and moving up into the heart of the lighthouse. You begin the long walker. The stairs are made of the same grey stone as the walls. They are shaped like thin wedges of pie. The wide part of the step is tucked deep into the wall, and the narrow part points toward the middle of the tower. This is a simple historical fact. The stairs are built this way so they do not need a pole in the middle to hold them up. They hold themselves up by being squeezed into the outer wall. It is a very clever way to build a ladder that will never rot or break. As you step up, you feel the weight of your body. Your legs have to work hard here. Each step is a little bit higher than a normal step in a house on land. You have to lift your knees high. You can feel the muscles in your thighs starting to pull and grow warm. Your heart begins to beat a little faster. A soft thump in your chest that matches the rhythm of your feet. Climb, breathe, climb, breathe, climb, breathe. The air gets a little thinner as you move away from the heavy iron door at the bottom. You are now in the throat of the tower. There are no windows here. The only light comes from the small torch you carry in your hand. The yellow beam dances across the stone. You see the tiny lines where the tools of the masons, the men who cut the stone, left their marks long ago. You can see the rough chips and the smooth spots. It makes you think of the hands that touched these stones before you were even born. You're wearing a special kind of sock to keep your feet happy. This is a micro-history detail. These are called Guernsey socks. They are made of very thick wool that has been knitted very tightly. The wool still has the natural oil from the sheep in it. This oil is called lanolin. It makes the socks feel a bit heavy and waxy, but it keeps your feet dry even if a little bit of water gets into your boots. The thick wall cushions your feet against the hard stone steps. Without them, the cold of the granite would seep through your leather soles and make your toes ache. You stop for a moment on a small landing. A landing is a flat part of the stairs where you can stand and rest. You are about halfway up now. You lean your shoulder against the curved wall and turn off your torch. Total darkness falls over you. It is a thick, heavy blackness, like being wrapped in a velvet blanket. In this darkness, your other senses wake up. You listen. This is your moment of silence. In the dark, the tower feels even bigger. You can hear the wind outside, but it sounds different now. It is not just a roar anymore, it is a whistle. The wind is moving so fast around the round tower that it makes a high, singing sound. It sounds like 1,000 ghosts trying to find a way inside. But the stone is too strong. The wind slides off the smooth curve of the tower and flies away into the night. You feel very small, but you also feel very safe. You are like a little bird inside a giant hollow tree. You turn your torch back on. The light feels bright and cheerful against the grey walls. You look at your boots. They are covered in a fine grey dust. This dust comes from the stone itself. As the tower moves very slightly in the wind, the stones rub together just a tiny bit. Over 100 years, this rubbing has made a fine powder that settles on every ledge. You use the toe of your boot to draw a small circle in the dust. It is a quiet mark that says you were here. You begin to climb again. The spiral is getting tighter now. This is because the tower is getting narrower as you get closer to the top. You have to be careful not to hit your shoulder against the wall. You keep one hand on the stone for balance. The stone feels a bit warmer here than it did at the bottom. Maybe it is because you are getting closer to the living rooms where the small fires burn. Or maybe it is just because your own body is warming up from the hard work of the climb. You think about the keepers who came before you. In the old days, they didn't have torches like you do. They had to carry small lamps filled with stinking oil. They had to be very careful not to trip and spill the oil on the stairs. If the light went out, they would have to find their way in the pitch black, feeling the wall with their hands. You feel lucky to have your torch, but you also feel a bond with those old keepers. You are all doing the same walk, one step at a time, night after night. Your legs are starting to feel very heavy now. Each step feels like you're lifting a heavy stone. You take a deep breath and smell the scent of the tower again. Up here, it smells less like the sea and more like metal and oil. This is the smell of the machinery that makes the big light turn. It is a comforting smell. It means you are getting close to the top. It means you are almost at the place where the warmth is. You see a small wooden door ahead of you. It is set into the stone wall at the top of the stairs. This door leads to the oil room. Beyond that is the kitchen, and then your bedroom, and finally the light. You reach the top step and stand on the flat floor. Your legs are shaking just a little bit from the effort. You take off your heavy hat and wipe a bit of sweat from your forehead. Even though it is freezing outside, the work of the lighthouse has made you warm. You look back down the spiral stairs. The light from your torch only goes down a few steps before it is swallowed by the shadows. It looks like a deep, dark well. You are glad to be up here. You are high above the waves now. You are in the part of the tower where life happens. You reach for the handle of the wooden door. It is made of black iron, and it feels solid in your hand. You take one last deep breath of the cool stairwell air before you go inside. The long climb is over. Now, your real work begins. The night is long, and the ships are waiting for the light to wake up. You turn the handle and step through the door, leaving the cold stone stairs behind you. The sound of the wind changes again as you close the wooden door. It is softer now, muffled by the wood and the extra layers of the upper rooms. You feel a sense of pride. You have made the climb. You have carried yourself and your gear up into the sky. You are the watchman, and you have reached your post. You push open the final small door and step out onto the floor of the lantern room. This is the very top of the tower, the crown of the lighthouse. It is a world of glass and light. After the narrow, dark spiral of the stairs, this room feels wide and open. You feel like you are standing in the middle of the sky. The walls here are not made of thick stone like the rest of the tower. Instead, they are made of giant panes of glass held together by a frame of heavy black iron. The glass is very thick, almost as thick as your hand, but it is so clear that it feels like there is nothing between you and the storm. In the very center of the room stands the great light. It is a massive thing, taller than you are and much wider. It looks like a giant glass beehive. This is a simple historical fact, This big glass piece is called a Fresnel lens. A man named Augustin Fresnel made it almost 200 years ago. He was very clever because he figured out a way to make a small light look very big. Before this, lights were weak and could not be seen from far away. But this lens is made of hundreds of pieces of glass shaped like prisms. These prisms catch every single tiny bit of light from the lamp and squeeze it together into one powerful, bright beam. It is this beam that cuts through the rain and the dark to tell the ships where the rocks are. You walk around the edge of the lens. The floor here is made of smooth, polished brass. It is so clean that you can see your own face reflecting in it, though the reflection is a bit wavy. You carry a special cloth in your pocket. This is a micro-history detail. It is a piece of chamois leather, which you call a chamois. It is made from the skin of a mountain goat, and it is the softest thing you have ever felt. It feels like a piece of velvet, but it is very good at catching dust and oil. You use it every day to polish the glass. Even a tiny bit of soot or a fingerprint could make the light less bright. You lean in and gently rub a small spot on one of the glass prisms. You move your hand in a slow circular motion. You can hear the soft squeak of the leather against the glass. It is a peaceful sound that makes you feel like you were taking good care of this giant machine. As you work, you look out through the glass walls of the room. This is your moment of silence. You stop moving and just look. Outside, it is pitch black, but not the kind of black you see in a bedroom. This is the black of the deep ocean during a winter gale. You cannot see where the water ends and the sky begins. Everything is a swirling dark mess. Then a flash of lightning hits far away. For a tiny second, the world turns a bright electric blue. You see the waves. They are huge, like white mountains crashing into each other. You see the spray flying up from the base of the tower. It hits the glass of the lantern room with a sound like a handful of gravel being thrown against a window. Clatter, clatter, clatter. But the glass does not break. It is built to stand against the strongest winds in the world. You feel a sense of wonder being up here. You are high above the earth, separated from the wild sea by only a few inches of glass and iron. It feels like you are sitting in a bubble at the edge of the world. The wind is screaming now. It hits the lantern room with a force that makes the whole tower hum. It is a deep, low sound, like the note of a giant organ in a church. You feel it in your chest more than you hear it with your ears. Most people would be very scared to be up here in such a storm, but you are not. You know the men who built this. You know the strength of the iron and the weight of the glass. You feel like a captain on the bridge of a ship that can never sink. The air in the lantern room is a bit warmer than the stairs. This is because of the oil lamp inside the lens. Even though it is not fully lit yet, the small pilot light gives off a little bit of heat. It smells like hot metal and clean oil. It is a dry heat that feels good on your cold hands. You rub your palms together and then reach out to touch the iron frame of the glass wall. The iron is freezing cold, chilled by the wind on the other side. You pull your hand back and tuck it into your pocket, feeling the warmth of your own body. You look at the machinery under the lens. There are big brass gears and wheels that look like the inside of a giant clock. These gears have to be kept very clean and well oiled. If they stop, the light will stop turning and a ship might get lost. You see the small can of oil sitting on a shelf. It has a long, thin neck so you can reach deep into the heart of the machine. You check the oil levels, making sure everything is ready for the long night ahead. Everything is in its place. Everything is ready. You take a deep breath. The air is fresh and smells of the salt that is being blown against the glass. You look out at the horizon again. You are waiting for the exact moment the sun disappears completely. That is when you will turn the light into a sun of its own. You feel a great weight of duty. You are the only person for miles who is awake and watching. You are the guardian of this stretch of the coast. If you do your job well, every sailor out there will see your light and know they are safe. You walk to the small wooden chair in the corner of the room. It is an old chair with a high back and a seat that has been worn smooth by many keepers sitting in it before you. You sit down for just a moment to rest your legs. From here you can see the whole room and the dark world outside. You feel the tower sway. Just a tiny, tiny bit. It is not a scary movement. It is the tower breathing with the wind. If the stone were too stiff, it would crack. But because it is built so well, it can move a little bit and stay strong. You look at the lens again. It is beautiful, even when it is not fully lit. The glass catches the little bit of light from your torch and turns it into 1,000 tiny rainbows. It is like a giant diamond sitting in the middle of a storm. You feel lucky to be the one who gets to sit here and watch it. You are the watcher in the night, and this glass room is your castle. You lean back in your chair and listen to the rain drumming on the roof. It is a loud, busy sound, but inside the room, it just makes you feel even more tucked away and safe. The storm can do whatever it wants. You are here, the glass is strong, and the light is waiting to shine. You stand up from your wooden chair. The time has come to wake the light. You walk slowly toward the very center of the giant glass lens. In the middle of all those prisms sits the lamp. It is a large brass object that looks a bit like a tall, fancy stove. This lamp is the heart of the lighthouse. Without it, the tower is just a pile of stone in the dark. You feel a sense of quiet excitement. This is the moment when you bring the tower to life. You reach into your pocket and pull out a small metal box. Inside the box are your matches. In these days, people call them lucifers. This is a micro-history detail. A lucifer match is a small stick of wood with a silver-grey tip. They're called lucifers because that name means light bringer. They have a very strong smell, like burnt eggs, because of the chemicals on the tip. You take one out and hold it in your fingers. The wood is thin and dry. You feel the rough side of the box. You are ready to make a spark. But before you strike the match, you must check the wick. The wick is a long, thick ribbon made of braided cotton. It sits in a circle inside the burner. You look at the top of the cotton. It must be perfectly flat and clean. If there are any burnt bits or uneven edges, the flame will be smoky and dim. You take a pair of snuffers from a hook. Snuffers are special scissors used to trim the wick. You carefully snip away a tiny bit of the black burnt cotton from the night before. Snip, snip. The little black flakes fall into a small tray. Now the wick is fresh and white, ready to drink up the oil. You turn a small brass knob on the side of the lamp. You hear a soft gurgle sound. That is the oil flowing down from the tank above. It travels through a thin pipe and soaks into the cotton wick. You wait for a minute, watching the white cotton turn a dark, wet grey as it fills with oil. This is a simple historical fact. Before lighthouses had electric bulbs, they used something called an argand lamp. This lamp was special because the wick was shaped like a ring or a hollow circle. This let air flow up through the middle of the flame, as well as around the outside. More air meant a much hotter, brighter, and whiter light. It was the best way to make a light that could be seen for miles across the sea. Now you strike the lucifer match against the box. Scritch, a bright spark jumps out, followed by a small puff of blue smoke. The flame catches and turns a cheerful yellow. You hold the match carefully, shielding it with your hand so the wind outside the glass does not blow it out. You lean in toward the burner. You touch the flame of the match to the wet cotton wick. At first, the flame is tiny. It is just a little blue line that creeps around the circle of the wick. But then, as the oil catches, it begins to grow. You watch the flame turn from blue to a bright glowing orange. It makes a very soft sound, like a gentle hiss. You can feel the heat starting to come off the lamp. It hits your face like the first warm day of spring. You turn the brass knob just a little bit more, raising the wick higher. The flame grows taller and stronger. You put the glass chimney over the flame. The chimney is a tall tube of very clear glass that protects the fire. As soon as you put it on, the flame steadies itself. It stops flickering and becomes a solid, bright pillar of light. This is your moment of silence. You step back and put your hands in your pockets. You watch the light grow. The room, which was dark and grey just a moment ago, is now filled with a warm golden glow. The shadows of the iron frames dance on the walls and the floor. You look at the giant glass lens around the lamp. The light from the flame hits the prisms and begins to bend. It is like a miracle. The small flame in the center is being caught by hundreds of pieces of glass and turned into a massive, powerful beam. You can see the beam now, stretching out through the windows and into the black night. It looks like a long, solid white finger reaching out to touch the waves. You feel the warmth of the lamp spreading through the room. It is a very cozy feeling. Outside, the storm is still raging. You can see the rain lashing against the glass, and the wind is still making the tower hum. But in here, everything is calm and bright. The heat from the lamp is the best kind of heat. It is not like a fire in a fireplace that pops and cracks. It is a steady, quiet warmth that fills every corner of the lantern room. You can feel the chill leaving your bones. You take off your heavy wool coat and hang it on the back of your chair. You are just in your thick shirt and waistcoat now, and you feel perfectly comfortable. You look at the flame through the glass chimney. It is a perfect circle of light. You think about how this small bit of fire is now the most important thing for miles around. Somewhere out there, in the middle of the crashing waves, a sailor is looking for this light. He is cold, he is wet, and he is tired. He's worried about the rocks and the wind, but then he sees your light. He sees that golden flash in the dark, and he knows where he is. He knows he can stay away from the shore and keep his ship safe. You are the person who gave him that hope. You are the one who lit the lamp. You check the oil level one more time. The lamp is drinking the oil at a steady pace. You will have to come back and check it every hour to make sure the wick stays at the right height. If the wick is too high, it will make black soot that ruins the glass. If it is too low, the light will not be bright enough. It is a delicate balance, like taking care of a living thing. You feel a bond with the lamp. It is your partner for the night shift. As long as the lamp is burning, your job is being done. You walk around the lens, watching how the light moves through the prisms. It is like being inside a giant clock made of jewels. Each piece of glass is perfectly shaped to send the light exactly where it needs to go. You notice a small smudge on the glass chimney. You wait until the glass is not too hot. Then you use your soft chamois cloth to wipe it away. You want everything to be perfect. The light deserves to be clear. The heat in the room is getting even stronger now. The iron frames of the windows are starting to warm up. Even the brass floor feels less cold under your boots. You stand there for a moment, just breathing in the scent of the hot oil and the warm metal. It is the smell of safety. It is the smell of the night shift. While the rest of the world is tucked under their blankets in houses that do not move, you are up here in the sky, tending to the golden fire. You feel proud. You feel calm. The light is steady. The warmth is growing, and the watch has truly begun. You are the keeper of the flame, and the night is under your care. You stand near the giant glass lens, feeling the heat from the lamp on your face. But as you turn your head toward the windows, you hear it. The wind has changed. It is no longer just a whistle or a low hum. It has grown into a long, deep roar. It sounds like a giant train that is passing very close to your ears, but the train never stops. It just keeps coming, louder and louder. This is the sound of the winter gale. It is a wild, hungry sound. It wants to get inside. It wants to put out your light and cool your warm room. But the glass stands in its way. You walk toward the outer edge of the room. You have to be careful as you move because the floor is starting to tremble. You put your hand out and touch one of the iron bars that holds the glass in place. You can feel the vibration in the metal. It is a fast, buzzing feeling that goes right up your arm. The wind is pushing against the tower with so much force that the whole building is singing. Every bolt, every piece of stone, and every pane of glass is feeling the pressure of the storm. You look out through the glass. The rain is not falling in drops anymore. It is coming down in long grey sheets that look like curtains being pulled across the sky. The wind catches the rain and throws it against a lantern room. Thwack, thwack. It sounds like someone is hitting the glass with a wet towel. Behind the rain, you see the ocean. Even in the dark, you can see the white foam of the waves. They look like ghosts leaping out of the black water. They're trying to reach you, but you are too high up. You are safe in your nest of light. This is a good time to remember a simple historical fact. A man named Sir Francis Beaufort once came up with a way to talk about the wind. He was a sailor in the Royal Navy a long time ago. He made a scale from 0 to 12. 0 is a calm day where the smoke from a chimney goes straight up. 12 is a hurricane-force storm where the wind can blow down buildings and move the very sea itself. Tonight you think the wind is a 10 or an 11. This is a whole gale. It is a wind that can rip the sails off a ship and turn the air into a thick wall of salt and water. You are glad to be on the inside of the glass, watching the scale 12 world from a safe place. You look down at a small shelf near the window. On this shelf sits a strange object. This is a microhistory detail. It is called a storm glass or a Fitzroy barometer. It is a glass tube filled with a special liquid and white crystals. It was a tool used by sailors and keepers to see what the weather would do next. You pick it up carefully. The crystals inside look like tiny white feathers today. When the crystals are at the top and look like feathers, it means a big storm is here. When the liquid is clear, the weather will be fine. Right now, the glass is full of those white feathers. It is a small, quiet way of seeing the power of the air. You set the glass back on its shelf and watch the crystals dance as the tower sways. The tower moves. It is a very slow, heavy lean to one side and back the middle. It only moves an inch or two, but you can feel it in your knees. You have to shift your weight to stay balanced. This is a strange feeling, like being on a ship that is stuck in the mud. The stone tower is not supposed to move, you think, but then you remember that it must move. If it were too stiff, the wind would snap it like a dry twig. Because the stones are locked together so well, the tower can bend a tiny bit without breaking. It is a very clever way to build. You trust the tower, you trust the stone, you walk back to the lamp. You want to be near the warmth again. You find a moment of silence here. You close your eyes. Even with the roar of the wind outside, there is a quiet spot in the very center of the room. You hear the tiny tick-tick of the clockwork gears that turn the lens. You hear the soft hiss of the burning oil. These are the sounds of your work. They are small sounds, but they are more important than the roar of the storm. They tell you that everything is working. They tell you that you were doing your job. You stand there for a minute, just feeling the contrast between the wild world outside and the steady, warm world inside. You look at the glass panes again. They are called storm panes. They are much thicker than the glass in a normal house. They are held in place by thick putty and iron frames. You notice a tiny bit of water leaking in at the very bottom of one pane. It is just a few drops, creeping in like a small silver snake. You take a rag from your belt and wipe it away. You check the rest of the windows. They are all holding strong. The wind screams louder, hitting the corner of the lantern room with a sound like a whistle. It is trying to find a gap, a tiny hole it can use to get inside. But there are no holes. The men who build this tower made sure of that. You feel a sense of pity for any ship out there tonight. The wind is so strong that it would be hard to even stand up on the deck of a boat. The air would be so full of salt and spray that you could not see your own hand in front of your face. But then you look at your light. The beam is strong. It cuts through the rain like a hot knife through butter. It shows the way. You are the one who is holding the torch for the world. You are the one who is staying steady while everything else is moving. The heat from the lamp is a great comfort. It feels like a warm blanket wrapped around your shoulders. You reach out and warm your hands near the glass chimney of the lamp. Your fingers were a bit cold from touching the window frame, but now they are tingling as the warmth comes back. You can smell the hot oil and the salt from the spray that has leaked in. It is a smell you will always remember. It is the smell of the night shift in the middle of a gale. You think about how big the ocean is. It stretches for thousands of miles in every direction. And in all that space, your little tower is the only thing that stays still. You are like a pin stuck in a giant moving map. You feel a deep sense of pride in your stone house. It is a strong house. It is a brave house. It stands in the middle of the enemy's camp and refuses to move. The wind can howl all it wants, and the waves can beat against the base until they are tired. You are the keeper, and you are not going anywhere. You walk around the room one more time, checking each pane of glass. The storm is at its peak now. The sound is so loud that you would have to shout to be heard by someone standing right next to you. But there is no one else here. You are the only soul in this high glass room. You are not lonely though. You have the lamp, you have the tower, and you have your duty. You watch the rain dance on the glass and feel the vibration of the wind in your boots. The night is halfway through, and you are ready for whatever comes next. The storm is big, but your light is bigger. You take a deep breath of the warm, oily air and settle back into your watch. You step away from the warm glow of the lamp for a moment. Even though the lantern room is cozy, you have a very important job to do. You need to check the oil. The lamp is a hungry thing. It drinks the oil at a steady pace. And if the oil runs out, the light goes out. And if the light goes out, the ships are in danger. You pick up your torch and walk back toward the small wooden door that leads to the rooms below. As you leave the lantern room, the temperature drops just a little bit. The heat from the lamp stays behind, and the cool air of the tower wraps around you once again. You walk down a short flight of stairs to the level just below the light. This is the oil room. It is a small, round room with very thick walls. There are no windows here, so the air feels very still and heavy. It smells like a garage or a workshop. The smell is thick and greasy, but it is a good smell. It is the smell of fuel. You shine your light around the room. Against the walls, you see large, silver-colored tanks made of iron. These are the service tanks. They hold the oil that will be used tonight and for the rest of the week. You walk over to the first tank. It is cold to the touch. You can feel the chill of the metal through your leather gloves. On top of the tank is a heavy lid with a brass handle. You grip the handle and pull. The lid makes a soft clank as it opens. You shine your torch inside. The oil looks like a pool of liquid gold. It is thick and smooth. When you move your torch, the light ripples across the surface of the oil like a tiny wave. This is a moment of silence for you. You stand there, looking at the golden liquid. It is perfectly calm in here, while the storm screams just a few feet away on the other side of the stone. You watch a single tiny bubble rise to the surface and pop. Blup. It is the only sound in the room. This oil is very special. This is a simple historical fact. For a long time, lighthouses used oil made from whales, but later they switched to something called colza oil. Colza oil comes from the seeds of a plant that has bright yellow flowers. You might know it as rapeseed oil. It was much better because it did not smell as bad as whale oil, and it burned with a very steady, white flame. It was the lifeblood of the lighthouse. Without these seeds from the fields far away, the tower would be useless. You think about the farmers growing the flowers in the sun, never knowing that the oil from their plants would end up here in a stone tower in the middle of a winter storm. You need to know exactly how much oil is left. To do this, you use a special tool. This is a microhistory detail. You reach for a dipstick hanging on a hook on the wall. It is a long, flat rod made of polished brass. It has small lines carved into it like a ruler. You carefully lower the brass rod into the dark oil. You feel it hit the bottom of the tank with a soft thud. You pull it back out and hold it up to your torch. You look at where the wet oil ends on the rod. The oil has reached the mark for 20 gallons. That is plenty for tonight. You feel a sense of relief. Having a full tank of oil is like having a full belly. It means you are ready for the long night. You take a small piece of cloth and wipe the oil off the brass rod. You do this slowly and carefully. You do not want to waste even a single drop. In a lighthouse, everything is precious. You cannot just go to a shop if you run out of things. You have to wait for the supply ship. And in a storm like this, the ship might not come for weeks. You have to be a good husband. This is an old word that means you take care of your things and do not waste them. You hang the rod back on its hook. Next to the tanks, you see a small wooden board hanging on the wall. This is your tally board. It has a piece of white chalk hanging from a string. Every time you fill the lamp, you make a mark on the board. This helps you keep track of how much the lamp is eating. You look at the marks from the last few days. The lamp has been very hungry because the nights are getting longer in the autumn. You pick up the chalk and make a fresh white line for tonight. The chalk feels dry and dusty in your hand, a big change from the oily brass. You check the pipes that lead from the tanks up to the floor above. These pipes are made of lead and copper. You run your hand along them, feeling for any wet spots. If a pipe leaks, it is a big problem. Not only is it a waste of oil, but it is also very dangerous. Oil on a stone floor is as slippery as ice, but the pipes are dry. They are solid and well made. You feel a sense of pride in the machinery of the tower. It is all so simple, yet it works so well. It is like a giant clock that keeps the world safe. You walk to the small sink in the corner. You need to wash the oil from your gloves. There is a small tin of pumice soap there. This is a grey, gritty soap that feels like sand. It is very good at scrubbing away grease. You rub the soap between your hands, feeling the rough texture. It wakes up your skin. You rinse your hands with a little bit of cold water from a jug. The water is freezing, and it makes your fingers tingle. You dry them on a rough towel that smells like the sea air. You take one last look around the oil room. The iron tanks look like silent guards standing in a row. They hold the power of the light inside their bellies. You feel a deep sense of safety knowing they are full. The wind outside hits the tower again, and you hear that deep, low roar. But here in the oil room, nothing moves. The golden liquid stays still in its tank. The stone walls hold the world at bay. You turn off your torch for a second. In the dark, you can hear the heartbeat of the lighthouse. It is the sound of the oil dripping through the pipes. Drip, drip, drip. It is a slow, steady sound. It tells you the lamp is being fed. It tells you the light is still burning bright upstairs. You feel a connection to the light. You are the one who provides the fuel. You are the one who makes sure the heart keeps beating. You turn your light back on and walk toward the stairs. Your work here is done for now. You have checked the stores and you have enough to last through the storm. You feel a bit more relaxed now. The night shift is all about checking and rechecking. It is about making sure the small things are right so that the big things don't go wrong. You begin to climb the short stairs back to the lantern room. You are looking forward to the warmth of the lamp again. You are looking forward to your next task. But most of all, you are happy that the golden oil is safe in its tanks, waiting to be turned into a beam of hope for the ships in the dark. You climb back up the short stairs into the lantern room. The heat hits you instantly, and it feels like a warm hug. The golden light from the lens is everywhere, reflecting off the brass and the glass. Now that you have checked the oil and made sure the lamp is fed, it is time to take care of yourself. You have a long night ahead, and you need something to keep your spirit strong. It is time to make a hot cup of coffee. You walk to the small corner of the room where you keep your comforts. This is a tiny wooden shelf tucked away from the machinery. On it sits a small spirit stove. This is a micro-history detail. A spirit stove is a tiny metal burner that uses alcohol, or spirits, as fuel. It is perfect for a lighthouse because it is small and does not make a lot of smoke. You pick up a small tin pot, which you call a billy. You fill it with water from a stone jug. The water is cold and clear, and you can see tiny bubbles clinging to the side of the pot. You light the spirit stove with another one of your lucifer matches. The flame is a pale ghostly blue, almost hard to see in the bright light of the lantern. You place the billy on top of the burner. Now, you wait. This is your moment of silence. You stand by the stove and watch the water. Outside, the storm is reaching a new level of noise. The wind is hitting the glass so hard it sounds like a drum solo. But here, in your little corner, everything is quiet. You watch the first tiny bubbles of air begin to rise from the bottom of the pot. They look like little pearls. You hear the first soft hiss of the water getting hot. While the water heats up, you reach for your coffee tin. It is an old tin with a picture of a ship on the front. You open the lid, and the smell of the beans fills the air. It is a wonderful smell, deep, earthy, and rich. It reminds you of the land, of busy streets and warm shops. You use a small wooden spoon to put 2 scoops of the dark grounds into your mug. The mug is made of thick, blue enamel. It is very strong, so it won't break if the tower shakes and it falls off the shelf. This coffee is a simple historical fact. Back in the day, coffee was a very important part of a lighthouse keeper's life. Because you have to stay awake all night, you need the kick that coffee gives you. In the 1800s, sailors and keepers often drank their coffee black and very strong. They called it mud, sometimes because it was so dark. It was the fuel that kept the night shift moving. You look at the dark grains in the bottom of your mug and feel glad that you have this little bit of magic to help you through the watch. The water in the billy begins to boil. It makes a happy, bubbling sound that competes with the roar of the gale. You turn off the spirit stove and carefully pick up the pot using a thick cloth so you don't burn your hand. You pour the steaming water into your mug. The smell of the coffee hits you instantly. It is much stronger now, a thick cloud of scent that wraps around your head. You take a small silver spoon and stir the coffee. Clink, clink, clink. The sound of the spoon against the enamel is sharp and clear. You hold the mug in both of your hands. The heat from the coffee seeps through the enamel and into your palms. It feels amazing. Your fingers were still a little bit stiff from the cold of the oil room, but now they are coming back to life. You lift the mud to your face and let the steam rise into your nose. It feels like a warm mist on your skin. You take your first sip. It is very hot, so you have to blow on it first. The taste is bitter and strong, but it is exactly what you need. You feel the warmth travel all the way down into your belly. It is like a small fire has been lit inside you. You walk over to the window, holding your mug. You look out at the storm again. The rain is still lashing the glass, and the ocean is still a wild, white mess. But with the hot coffee in your hands, the storm doesn't seem so scary. You feel like you are in a secret clubhouse. You are the only person in the world who is in this exact spot, drinking this exact cup of coffee. It is a very special feeling. You are the watcher, and you are well fed and warm. You think about the ships again. You imagine a captain on his bridge, shivering in the cold. He is probably dreaming of a hot drink, just like this one. You hope that when he sees your light, he feels a little bit of the warmth that you feel right now. You take another sip of the coffee. It is starting to cool down just enough to drink comfortably. The bitterness is gone, replaced by a deep, woody flavor. You notice that your hands are perfectly steady. The night shift can be hard on the nerves, but the coffee helps you stay calm and focused. You look at the lamp. It is still burning perfectly. The light is steady, the gears are turning, and the oil is flowing. Everything is in order. You lean against the brass railing of the lens and just enjoy your drink. You watch the way the steam from your mug curls into the air, dancing in the light of the Fresnel lens. It looks like tiny spirits floating in the room. You feel a deep sense of peace. The world outside is a chaos of wind and water, but inside this glass circle there is coffee, warmth, and light. You finish the last drop of your coffee. The grounds at the bottom of the mug look like dark sand. You feel awake now. Your eyes feel sharp and your mind is clear. You set the mug back on the shelf and wipe the steam off your face with your sleeve. You are ready for the next part of your watch. The storm can howl all at once. You have your coffee in your belly and the light above your head. You are the watchman of the night, and you are ready for duty. You walk back to your small wooden chair. This chair is your island within an island. It is made of dark oak, and the wood has been rubbed smooth by the trousers of many keepers over many years. It sits in a quiet corner of the lantern room, just far enough from the lens so you can see the whole room, but close enough to feel the heat. You sit down slowly, feeling the solid wood support your back. You are alone, but you do not feel lonely. You are the watcher in the night, and this chair is your throne. As you sit, you become very still. This is your moment of silence. You let your hands rest on the arms of the chair. You can feel the vibration of the tower more clearly now that you are sitting. It is a deep, low thrumming that comes up through the floor and into the wood of the chair. It feels like the tower is a giant cat purring. This vibration is the sound of the wind hitting the stone and the waves hitting the base, hundreds of feet below. You close your eyes and just feel the movement. It is a slow, steady pulse. Thrum, thrum, thrum. It tells you that the tower is alive and fighting the storm. You look out through the curved glass. From this low seat, the perspective changes. You see the horizon more clearly. Every few seconds, the giant beam of light from the lens sweeps across the dark. For a split second, you see the rain turned into millions of silver needles. Then the light moves on, and it is black again. Then the light comes back. It is a rhythm, like a slow breath. Light, dark, light, dark. You find yourself breathing in time with the rotation of the lens. It is very relaxing. Even though the storm is screaming outside, the steady pace of the machinery keeps your heart calm. This chair has a history. This is a simple historical fact. Lighthouse keepers spent more time in their chairs than anywhere else. During the night shift, you are not allowed to sleep. You must stay awake to watch the light. If the light stops turning or the flame goes out, you have to act fast. Because of this, the chair is built to be comfortable, but not too comfortable. It has a high, straight back to help you stay upright and alert. You think about the men who sat here 50 years ago, watching a different storm but feeling the same vibration in their bones. You reach into the pocket of your waistcoat and pull out a small piece of wood and a knife. This is a microhistory detail. It is a piece of soft cedar wood. Many keepers would whittle or carve wood to pass the time and stay awake. You begin to shave a thin piece of wood off the side. Scrape. Scrape. The smell of the cedar is sweet and sharp, mixing with the oily smell of the lamp. You are carving a small bird, a puffin like the ones that live on the rocks in the summer. It gives your hands something to do while your eyes watch the horizon. The small curls of wood fall onto your lap like giant snowflakes. You look at the walls around you. Because the room is a circle, there are no corners for shadows to hide in. The light from the lens fills every inch of space. It is a very clean, bright kind of world. You feel safe in this circle. Outside, the world is full of sharp edges and crashing waves. But inside, everything is curved and smooth. You run your hand along the arm of the chair. You can feel a small notch where a keeper long ago might have carved his name or a date. You wonder who he was, and if he felt the same sense of peace you feel tonight. The wind hits the tower with a sudden, extra loud roar. You feel the tower give a tiny, heavy lurch. You grip the arms of the chair a bit tighter, but you are not afraid. You know the tower is anchored deep into the rock. You think about the weight of the granite. There are thousands of tons of stone beneath your feet. The wind is strong, but it is just air. It cannot move the mountain of stone you are sitting on. You let go of the chair and take a deep breath. You are safe. You are the watcher, and the stone is your shield. You watch a small moth that has somehow found its way into the lantern room. It is fluttering near the glass chimney of the lamp. It likes the light and the warmth, just like you do. It looks so small and fragile compared to the storm outside. You watch it for a long time, its wings casting giant, dancing shadows on the walls. It reminds you that life continues, even in the middle of a gale. You feel a sense of kindness toward the little moth. You are both guests in the tower tonight. You take another thin shave off your piece of cedar. The puffin is starting to take shape. You can see the curve of its beak and the shape of its head. Carving helps the time go by. On the night shift, time moves differently. Sometimes an hour feels like a minute, and sometimes it feels like a day. But as long as you have your wood and your chair, you are content. You are part of a long line of watchers. You are doing what needs to be done. You look at the clock on the wall. It is a heavy brass clock with a loud tick. Tick, tock, tick, tock, tick. It is almost time for your next round of checks. You will have to get up, check the oil, trim the wick, and polish the glass. But for now, you just sit. You enjoy the feeling of being the only person awake in this high stone fortress. You listen to the rain and the wind and the purr of the tower. You are warm, you are safe, and the light is shining bright. You lean your head back against the wooden slats of the chair and watch the silver rain dance in the beam of the great light. You stand up from your chair to stretch your legs. The air in the lantern room is warm, but you can still feel the ghost of the cold wind pressing against the glass. To stay truly warm, you rely on your clothing. You are wearing a heavy wool coat, often called a pea coat. It is made of a very thick dark blue cloth that feels as heavy as a blanket. This is a micro-history detail. The wool used for these coats is called kersey, or Melton wool. It is woven so tightly that it is almost impossible for the wind to blow through it. It feels a bit stiff when you first put it on, like a suit of soft armor. But as your body warms up the fabric, it becomes soft and moves with you. You run your hand down the sleeve of the coat. The wool is a bit rough, but it is a comforting kind of rough. It smells like a mix of sheep, salt, and a little bit of the wood smoke from the stove below. This coat is not just for looks, it is a tool. This is a simple historical fact. Sailors and lighthouse keepers wore these heavy wool coats because wool is one of the only fabrics that stays warm even when it gets wet. If a wave were to splash you, or if the rain leaked in, the wool would hold your body heat inside. It is the best friend a man can have on the night shift. You pull the collar up around your neck. The wool tickles your skin just a bit, but it stops the draft from the window from finding its way down your back. You feel like you are tucked inside a small portable house. You look at the buttons on your coat. They are large flat discs made of black horn. They are easy to grip, even if your fingers are cold or if you are wearing your leather gloves. You check each one to make sure they are fastened tight. Being a keeper means being tidy. If you have a loose button, it is a sign that you are not taking care of the small things. You walk around the room feeling the weight of the coat on your shoulders. It is a heavy weight, but it is a good weight. It makes you feel solid. You stop by the lens and look at your reflection in the brass frame. You look like a shadow in the golden light, a dark shape wrapped in thick wool. You take a moment of silence. You listen to the soft rustle of the wool as you move. It is a quiet, private sound. In this moment, you feel a deep sense of gratitude for the sheep that gave the wool and the people who wove the cloth. Without this coat, the tower would feel much colder. You think about how the coat protects you. Even though the lamp is hot, the stone floors of the tower are always drawing heat away from your feet. The wool keeps that heat from escaping your body. You feel a glow of warmth in your chest. You are like a little stove yourself, burning with energy, and the coat is the insulation that keeps the fire from going out. You reach into your deep pockets. They are lined with a softer cotton fabric, and they are the perfect place to hide your hands when you are just watching the sea. The wind gives the tower a sudden push, and you feel the temperature in the room drop for just a second as the cold air is pressed against the glass. You pull the coat tighter around you. You feel the thickness of the material. It is like having a thick wall of stone wrapped around your body. You are a tower inside a tower. You feel very strong and very safe. A storm can do what it likes. It cannot get past the glass, and it certainly cannot get past your wall. You look out at the dark water again. You imagine the sailors out there, huddled in their own wool coats, looking at your light. You feel a bond with them. You are all wearing the same thick fabric, all fighting the same cold, and all waiting for the same sun to rise. You take a deep breath, feeling the air stay warm as it passes through the collar of your coat. You are ready to continue your watch. Your coat is on, your lamp is bright, and the night is yours to guard. you walk to the very edge of the lantern room and press your forehead against the glass. The glass is freezing, a sharp contrast to the warm wool of your coat and the heat of the lamp behind you. You look down, deep into the darkness below the tower. It is a long way down, and the world below is a chaos of white and black. You're watching the waves hit the base of your stone home. In the day, the sea is blue or green, but tonight, under the shadow of the storm, the ocean is the colour of ink. The only things you can see are the white horses, the crests of the giant waves as they break into foam. A massive wave, bigger than all the ones before it, rolls in from the deep Atlantic. You see it coming, a dark wall of water that blots out the horizon. It moves with a slow, heavy power. When it reaches the rock where the tower stands, it does not just splash. It hits with a sound like a great explosion. Boom! You feel the vibrations start at the bottom of the tower and travel all the way up the granite blocks, through your boots and into your teeth. The water has nowhere to go but up. It rushes up the curved side of the tower, a giant sheet of white spray that climbs higher and higher into the air. For a second, the spray reaches as high as the lantern room. The salt water hits the glass panes with a loud slap, turning the world outside into a blur of grey. It feels as if the ocean is trying to reach up and grab you, trying to pull the tower back down into the deep. But you stand perfectly still. You are not afraid. You know that you are safe in your stone fortress. The water slides back down the glass, leaving behind streaks of salt and foam. You watch it fall, a white ghost disappearing back into the Black Sea. This is a good time to think about a simple historical fact. Many years ago, a man named John Smeaton looked at how trees stand up in a storm. He noticed that an oak tree is very wide at the bottom and gets thinner as it goes up. This shape helps the tree stay strong when the wind blows. He decided to build lighthouses in the same shape. This is why your tower is wider at the base and curves inward as it rises. When a wave hits a flat wall, it tries to knock the wall over. But when a wave hits a curved tower like this, the water is forced to flow up and around a stone. The shape of the tower turns the power of the ocean against itself. It is a very clever way to build, and it has kept this tower standing for 100 years. Outside the glass, there is something you can only see when the light of the lens sweeps past. This is a microhistory detail. You see a fine net of heavy copper wire wrapped around the outside of the lantern room glass. You call this the bird net. During big storms like this, the bright light of the lamp can confuse birds that are flying over the sea. They see the light and try to fly toward the warmth, not knowing there is thick glass in their way. Without the copper net, a large bird could hit the glass and break it, or hurt itself. The net is soft enough to catch them like a safety blanket. You look at the copper wires, which are now shiny with salt water. They are another layer of protection, keeping the glass safe from the wild things of the night. You step back from the window and take a moment of silence. You close your eyes and listen to the rhythm of the waves. Thud. Hiss. Thud. Hiss. The thud is the wave hitting the rock, and the hiss is the water sliding back into the sea. It sounds like the earth itself is breathing. You feel very small in this moment. You are just one person, sitting in a glass room, while the entire ocean moves around you. But you also feel very important. You are the only thing in this dark world that is not moving. You are the steady point. You are the anchor. You look at the salt on the glass. The spray has left a crust of white crystals. When the storm dies down tomorrow, you will have to go outside onto the gallery, the little walkway around the light, and wash the glass with fresh water. If you leave the salt there, it will turn into a thick white film that will block the light. It is hard work, standing out in the wind with a bucket and a brush, but it is part of the night shift. Everything you do is to make sure the light stays bright. You don't mind the work. It makes you feel like the tower and you are part of the same team. The waves continue to batter the rocks below. You see the spray flying up again and again, like white fire reaching for the stars. The sky is so dark that you cannot see the clouds, but you can feel the weight of them pressing down. The air feels heavy with the scent of salt. It is a sharp, clean smell that clears your head and makes your skin tingle. You take a deep breath, enjoying the way the salt air mixes with the warm, oily smell of the lamp. It is the smell of your life as a keeper. You think about the rocks under the water. They are sharp and jagged, like the teeth of a giant. Without your light, a ship would have no way of knowing they are there until it was too late. You imagine the wooden hull of a ship being torn open by the stone. It is a scary thought, but it makes you proud of your work. Every time a wave hits the tower and the tower stands firm, you feel a little victory. The ocean is strong, but the stone is stronger, and as long as you are here to tend the flame, the stone will continue to do its job. You walk to the other side of the room to see if the waves are just as big on the leeward side, the side away from the wind. It is a little quieter there. The water is still rough, but it doesn't hit the stone with the same explosion. You see the white foam swirling in the dark, looking like lace on a black dress. You stay there for a minute, watching the patterns the water makes. It is very beautiful, in a wild and scary way. You feel lucky to see it from such a high and safe place. You check the clock. Another hour has passed. The storm shows no sign of stopping, but that is fine. You have your warm coat, you have your coffee, and you have your stone walls. You look up at the giant lens as it turns, casting its long white finger of light over the crashing waves. The light is steady. The tower is strong. You are the watchman, and you are ready for the next wave. You settle back into your rhythm, moving through the warm room as the ocean roars below. A king in a castle of glass and light. You reach into the pocket of your thick wool waistcoat and pull out a fresh piece of your chamois leather. Even though the lantern room is clean, the burning lamp creates a tiny bit of soot. Soot is a fine black powder that comes from the flame. If it builds up on the glass chimney or the big prisms of the lens, it can make the light look orange and weak. Your job is to make sure the light stays white and sharp. You walk toward the giant lens, moving carefully so you do not trip on the brass floor. You begin to clean the glass. This is a simple historical fact. The glass in a lighthouse lens is not like the glass in a drinking cup. It is very high-quality glass, often made in France, and it is very expensive. Because it is so clear, it can scratch easily. You never use a rough brush or a dirty rag. You only use the softest leather or silk. You start at the top of the lens and work your way down. You use small round movements with your hand. Swish, 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 swish. As you rub, the glass starts to shine. It looks like the surface of a still pond in the morning. As you work, you look closely at the glass. This is a micro-history detail. You notice a small mark on one of the prisms. Is this a maker's mark? Is this a tiny name carved into the edge of the glass where nobody can see it unless they are cleaning it? It says Chance Brothers. This was a famous company in England that made glass for lighthouses all over the world. Seeing the name makes you feel connected to the people in the factory far away. They made the glass, and now you are the one keeping it bright. It is a shared secret between you and the men who made the lens. You find a moment of silence while you clean. You stop moving your hand and just listen. The lamp makes a very quiet crackle every now and then, like a tiny log fire. You can hear the wind outside, but here, the middle of the room, the sound of the cloth against the glass is the loudest thing. It is a very satisfying sound. It tells you that the glass is getting cleaner with every stroke. You look at your reflection in the curve of the prism. Your face looks very wide and then very thin as you move past the different shapes of the glass. It makes you smile. You move to the glass chimney that sits right over the flame. This is the hardest part to clean because it gets very hot. You have to wait for a moment when the flame is steady. You use a special wooden handle with a cloth wrapped around the end to wipe the inside of the tube. You see the black soot coming off onto the white cloth. It is amazing how much a tiny bit of dirt can hide the light. Once the soot is gone, the flame looks twice as bright. The whole room seems to jump with more energy. It is as if the light is happy to be clean. You stand back and look at your work. The lens is now a masterpiece of light and shadow. Every prism is catching the glow of the lamp and throwing it out into the dark. You feel a sense of pride in the night shift. It is not just about staying awake. It is about taking care of the things that save lives. A clean lens means a safe ship. You tuck the chamois leather back into your pocket. Your hands are a bit warm from the glass, and they smell like the clean, dry scent of the leather. You look at the brass frame that holds the glass. It needs a bit of a polish too. You will do that later in the night when you need to stay busy. For now, you are happy with the glass. You walk back to the window and look out. The beam of light is now so sharp that you can see the individual drops of rain as they pass through it. It looks like a solid bridge of light stretching across the sea. You take a deep breath and feel the warmth of the room. You have done a good job. The watcher has done his duty, and the light is perfect. The hard work of climbing the stairs and cleaning the lens has made you hungry. In the lighthouse, you do not have a big kitchen with a chef. You have to make your own food, and it has to be simple. You reach into your bag and pull out a small parcel wrapped in brown paper and tied with a bit of string. Inside is your midnight meal, a thick slice of salt beef and a piece of hard bread. This is a simple historical fact. Salt beef was a very common food for men at sea and in lighthouses. Because there were no fridges, the meat was soaked in salt to keep it from going bad. It lasts a long time, and it gives you the energy you need for the long night ahead. You sit back down in your wooden chair. You use a small pocket knife to cut a piece of the beef. The knife is sharp, and the wood of the handle feels warm in your palm. This knife is a micro-history detail. It is called a Barlow knife. It has a long metal end and a bone handle. It is a very strong tool that every workman in the 1800s carried in his pocket. You use it for everything from cutting rope to slicing your dinner. You cut a small bit of the meat and put it in your mouth. It is very salty and a bit chewy, but it tastes good. It is honest food for an honest job. You chew slowly, listening to the tower. This is your moment of silence. As you eat, a very large wave hits the base of the tower far below. You feel a gentle shudder go through the chair and up into your back. The tower shakes slightly, like a giant clearing its throat. You do not stop eating. You have grown used to this movement. It is a part of the life here. You watch the water in your cup. You can see tiny ripples on the surface every time the wind hits the glass. It is a quiet reminder of the power outside, but here in your seat, you feel tucked away and safe. The bread is hard, so you dip it into the last bit of your coffee to make it soft. The steam from the cup smells like home. You think about the people on the land. They're probably in their beds now, with heavy blankets and the sound of the wind in the trees. They do not know about the salt beef, the shaking tower, or the giant glass lens. You feel like you have a secret life. You are the one who stays awake so they can sleep in peace. It is a heavy duty, but it makes the simple meal taste even better. You feel strong and ready. You finish the last bit of your bread and wipe your knife on a clean cloth. You feel full and warm. The night shift can be lonely, but when you have a good meal and a bright light, you have everything you need. You look at the lamp, which is still burning with a steady golden flame. You are the watchman. Your belly is full, and you are ready to keep the world safe for another hour. You stand up, brush the crumbs from your wool coat, and begin your next walk around the room. You stand close to the great light, letting the heat wash over you. In this high glass room, the air is the warmest in the whole tower. It is a different kind of warmth than you would find in a house on land. A house on land has a fireplace where the wood pops and the smoke smells like autumn. But here, the heat is silent and steady. It comes from the big lamp in the middle of the lens. This lamp burns all night long, and it turns the lantern room into a cozy pocket of air high above the freezing sea. Even though the storm is trying to freeze the stone, the light keeps you perfectly warm. You reach out your hands, but you do not touch the glass of the lens. It is too hot for that. Instead, you hold your palms a few inches away from the prisms. You can feel the heat radiating out. It feels like a solid wall of warmth. This is a simple historical fact. The temperature inside a lantern room could reach over 30 degrees Celsius, even when it was snowing outside. The big oil lamp acts like a giant heater. The heat rises and gets trapped under the metal roof of the tower. Because the room is small and the light is so big, it stays very hot. Sometimes in the summer, it gets too hot, and the keepers have to open the small vents at the bottom. But tonight, in the middle of a winter gale, the heat is a gift. You look at a small object hanging from a brass hook on the wall. This is a microhistory detail. It is a Six's thermometer. It is a glass tube shaped like a letter U, filled with silver liquid and red oil. It was made by a man named James Six a long time ago. It has two little markers inside that show how hot it got during the day and how cold it got during the night. You lean in to look at the numbers. The silver liquid is pointing to a high number. It is very warm in here. You look at the other side of the tube, which shows the temperature outside the glass. The marker there is very low, near the point where water turns to ice. It makes you feel even better to see the difference. You're in a warm bubble, and the cold cannot get to you. You take a moment of silence. You step back from the light and stand in the middle of the room. You close your eyes. You don't listen to the wind for a moment. Instead, you listen to the heat. You can hear the air moving. As the hot air rises from the lamp, it creates a tiny breeze inside the room. You can feel it brushing against your cheeks. It smells like hot brass and clean, burning oil. It is a dry, dusty smell that feels very safe. You feel the weight of your heavy wool coat and for the first time tonight, you feel a little bit too warm. You unbutton the top of your coat to let some of the heat reach your neck. You walk around the lens, enjoying the way the temperature changes. When you are near the glass windows, you can feel a cold finger of air touching your skin. The wind is so strong that it pushes the cold right through the thick glass. But as soon as you step back toward the center, the heat from the lamp pushes the cold away. It is like a dance between the fire and the ice. You are the one standing in the middle, staying right in the sweet spot where it feels just right. You feel like a cat sitting on a sunny windowsill, even though it is the middle of the night and there is no sun to be seen. The heat also helps the machinery. The oil flows better when it is warm. The gears turn more smoothly when the metal is not frozen. You look at the brass wheels and the heavy chains. They are glowing in the golden light. You reach out and touch a brass handle on the frame. It is warm, almost like it is alive. Everything in this room is working together to stay warm and keep the light moving. You feel like you are part of a giant warm heart that is beating for the safety of the ships. You think about how lucky you are to have this light. In the very old days, before these big lamps were made, keepers had to use coal fires on top of towers. They would have to carry heavy bags of coal up the stairs and keep a giant fire burning in the wind. The heat would be uneven and the smoke would be thick and black. It was a messy, cold job, but now you have this clean, beautiful lamp. You have a warm room with glass walls that keep the rain out. You feel like the night shift has become much kinder over the years. You are the guardian of a very clever and very warm machine. You look at your hands. They are no longer pale and cold like they were when you first arrived at the island. They are pink and warm. You rub them together and feel the skin is soft. The heat of the room has taken away the ache of the climb. You feel full of energy again. The night shift is long, but when you are warm, it does not feel so hard. You feel like you could stay awake forever in this golden glow. You watch the steam from your breath disappear instantly because the air is so dry and hot. You decide to move your chair a little bit closer to the light. You want to soak up as much of the warmth as you can before you have to go back down the stairs to check the lower rooms. You sit down and feel the wood of the chair. It is warm too. Everything you touch has been kissed by the heat of the great light. You lean back and watch the patterns of the light on the ceiling. The heat makes the air shimmer like the air above a road on a hot summer day. It makes the room look like it is underwater. It is very beautiful and very peaceful. Outside, a bolt of lightning strikes the water far away. You see the flash, but it looks cold and blue. It is a reminder of how wild the world is out there. But then you look back at your lamp. The flame is orange and steady. It is a friendly light. It is a fire that does not want to burn things down. It only wants to help. You feel a deep sense of friendship with the flame. It is your companion in the dark. It gives you light to see, and it gives you heat to live. You are the watcher, and the warmth is your reward for staying awake. You check the clock again. The night is moving along, one tick at a time. The storm is still there, but it feels further away now. The heat of the lantern room acts like a wall of sound as well as a wall of warmth. It wraps you in a quiet, cozy blanket. You take a deep breath of the warm air and feel your lungs expand. You are ready for the next part of your watch. You have the oil, you have the food, and you have the most wonderful heat in the world. You are the watchman of the light, and you are very, very comfortable. You stand up and walk to the base of the giant lens. Now that you are warm and fed, it is time to do the most physical part of your job. The light is not just a lamp. It must turn. It must spin in a perfect circle so that the beam of light flashes across the sea at the exact right time. This is what helps sailors know which lighthouse they are looking at. Each one has its own signature, like a slow heartbeat of light. To make this heavy glass machine turn, you do not use an engine or electricity. You use the power of gravity. You look at the heavy machinery beneath the lens. It looks like the inside of a giant grandfather clock. There are brass wheels with teeth and long steel rods. In the center of the tower, there is a deep hole that goes all the way down to the bottom. Hanging inside this hole is a very heavy weight made of solid lead. It is as heavy as a small pony. As the weight slowly falls down the hole, it pulls a long chain. This chain turns the gears, and the gears turn the light. But eventually, the weight reaches the bottom. Now, you must wind it back up. You reach for the winding handle. This is a micro-history detail. It is a long, heavy bar made of iron with a wooden grip at the end. The wood is dark and oily from the sweat of many hands. You fit the end of the bar into a hole in the side of the brass machinery. You take a deep breath and prepare your muscles. This is the hardest work of the night. You begin to turn the handle. Clack, clack, clack. The sound is loud and sharp, echoing off the glass and the stone. You can feel the weight of the lead as you pull it up against the force of gravity. This is a simple historical fact. The cockwork for a lighthouse lens is built to be very strong and very steady. If the weights fall too fast, the light will spin too quickly. If they are too slow, the ships will get confused. To keep the speed perfect, there is a small device called a governor at the top. It has two brass balls that spin around. If the light goes too fast, the balls fly outward and slow the gears down. It is a very clever way to keep time without using any modern tools. You watch the little brass balls spinning as you turn the handle, feeling the rhythm of the machine in your arms. You continue to turn. Clack, clack, clack. Your shoulders begin to ache, and you feel the warmth of your body rising again. You have to turn the handle hundreds of times to get the weight all the way back to the top of the tower. You do not rush, you move at a slow, steady pace. You can feel the gears biting into each other. You think about the strength of the iron. Everything here is built to last. It has to be. If a gear broke tonight, the light would stop, and you would have to turn the giant lens by hand all night long. You reach out and touch a bit of grease on the chain to make sure it is slippery. This is your moment of silence. You stop turning for just a second to catch your breath. You listen. In the gap between the clacks of the handle, you can hear the deep, low roar of the gale outside. It is a strange contrast. Inside, there is the precise clicking sound of a human machine. Outside, there is the wild, messy noise of nature. You feel like you are winning a small battle. The wind wants to stop everything, but you and your brass gears keep moving. You take a final deep breath of the oily air and start turning again. You feel the resistance in the handle change. This means the weight is almost at the top. You give the handle 10 more slow turns. 1, 2, 3. With the final turn, you hear a different sound, a soft thud, as the weight reaches its resting place at the top of the dart shaft. You pull the iron handle out of the machine and hang it back on its hook on the wall. Your arms feel heavy and tired, but it is a good kind of tired. You have given the light its life for the next few hours. Now, the weight will slowly begin its long journey back down to the floor, turning the lens as it goes. You walk to the edge of the glass and watch the light. It is turning perfectly. The beam sweeps across the storm with a steady, calm movement. It looks so easy and smooth, but you know the weight and the work that goes into every turn. You rub your sore shoulders and look at your hands. They have a little bit of black grease on them from the handle. You wipe them on a rag, feeling the grit of the metal. You feel a sense of connection to the tower. You are the muscle that keeps the heart beating. You are the one who winds the clock that keeps the world safe. The lantern room feels even warmer now after the exercise. You unbutton your coat a little more and take a slow walk around the room. You check the speed of the rotation by watching the clock on the wall. The beam passes the same spot every 15 seconds. It is perfect. It is exactly as it should be. You feel a deep satisfaction in seeing the machine work. It is simple, it is honest, and it is beautiful. You sit back down in your chair and watch the gears. They move so slowly you can hardly see them, but they never stop. Just like you, they have a job to do, and they will do it until the sun comes up. You leave the warmth of the lamp and walk toward the outer glass walls. The storm is now at its strongest point. The noise is so loud it feels like a physical weight pressing against the tower. You need to check the storm windows. These are the giant glass panes that protect the lens and you from the ocean. Even though they are thick, a storm this big can find a way through the smallest gap. You carry a small wooden box with you. Inside the box is a lump of grey putty and some strips of thick cloth. These are your tools for the night shift repairs. You walk slowly around the edge of the room. You are looking for any sign of water coming through the iron frames. You hold your hand near the edges of the glass. You are feeling for a whistle. This is a microhistory detail. When the wind is moving very fast, it can squeeze through a tiny hole in the window sealant. This makes a high, screaming sound like a boiling kettle. If you hear that whistle, it means the wind is pushing air and salt water inside. You have to stop it before the gap gets bigger. You stop by a pane of glass on the side of the tower that is facing the wind. You hear it. It is a tiny, sharp shriek that cuts through the roar of the gale. You move your torch across the iron frame. There, in the bottom corner, you see a small line of bubbles. The The wind is forcing salt water through a tiny crack in the old putty. This is a simple historical fact. The putty used in lighthouses was often a mix of linseed oil and white lead. It stays a bit soft, so the glass can move when the tower shakes, but over many years, the salt air can make it brittle and dry. You take a small piece of your cloth and wipe the area dry. Then, you take a piece of the grey putty from your box. You roll it between your palms. The heat of your hands makes the putty soft and sticky. You press it firmly into the corner of the frame, using your thumb to smooth it out. You have to push hard to fight against the pressure of the wind. As soon as you fill the gap, the whistling stops. The silence in that corner feels like a small victory. You have mended the skin of the tower. This is your moment of silence. You stay in that corner for a minute, with your hand still resting on the repair. You can feel the cold of the glass and the vibration of the storm. It feels like the ocean is a giant beast trying to poke its finger through the wall. But your little bit of putty and your careful work have pushed it back. You feel a sense of quiet power. You are the one who keeps the tower tight. You are the one who makes sure the inside stays dry and the light stays safe. You continue your walk around the circle. You check every bolt and every joint in the iron frame. Some of the bolts are as big as your fist. They are made of black iron and are covered in a thick layer of paint to keep the salt from eating them away. You touch each one, making sure they are not loose. Everything feels solid. The men who built this tower knew what they were doing. They gave you a strong house, and it is your job to keep it that way. You feel a deep respect for the builders as you move through the warm golden light. You look out through the glass you just fixed. The spray is hitting the window so hard that it looks like the tower is underwater. You can see the salt crystals forming on the glass almost as soon as the water slides away. It makes the world outside look blurry and strange, like a dream. But inside, everything is sharp and clear. You see the reflection of the lamp in the glass. It looks like a second sun hanging in the dark sky. You feel very tucked away and very safe. You check the floor near the windows. Sometimes the rain can hit the tower with so much force that it is driven up through the vents at the bottom of the room. You see a small puddle of water near the brass railing. You take a rag and soak it up. You do not want any water to sit on the brass or the stone. In a lighthouse, dampness is the enemy. It makes things rust, and it makes the floor slippery. You keep everything ship-shape, which is an old way of saying everything is clean and in its proper place. You finish your round and put your box of putty back on the shelf. You feel a bit tired from the tension of the storm, but you also feel proud. The windows are holding. The tower is dry. You have listened to every whistle and fixed every leak. You walk back to the center of the room, where the heat from the lamp is waiting for you. You feel the warmth soak into your bones again. You take a deep breath of the dry, oily air. The storm is still there, but you have proven that your fortress is stronger. You look at the clock. The night is deep now. You are in the very middle of the watch. This is the time when the world feels most still, even in the gale. You are the only person for miles who's doing anything. Everyone else is just waiting for the morning. You feel like the night shift is a special club, and you are the only member tonight. You sit down in your chair and watch the light. It is steady, it is bright, and because of your work, it is dry. You are the watchman, and the tower is safe under your hand. You walk over to the small wooden desk that is built into the curve of the wall. This desk is your office. It is small and simple, with a flat top made of dark mahogany wood that has been polished by the sleeves of many keepers. On the desk sits the most important book in the tower, the daily logbook. It is a large, heavy book with a thick cover made of green leather. This book is the memory of the lighthouse. Every single night for the last 100 years, a keeper has sat at this desk to record what happened during the night shift. Now, it is your turn to add your part to the story. You sit down on the small stool and open the book to a fresh page. The paper is thick and creamy, and it has a faint smell of old trees and dust. There are columns drawn on the page for the time, the wind speed, the height of the waves, and how much oil the lamp has used. This is a simple historical fact. The logbook is a legal record. If a ship were to go missing or get into trouble, the people on land would look at this book to see if the light was burning and what the weather was like. It is your way of proving that you did your duty and that the tower was doing its job. You reach for your pen. This is a micro-history detail. You do not use a modern pen with a ball at the end. You use a dip pen. It has a thin wooden handle and a sharp metal tip called a nib. Next to the pen is a small glass jar filled with iron gall ink. This ink is very special because it is made from the crushed galls of oak trees. It starts out looking blue-black, but over time it reacts with the air and turns a deep, permanent brown. This means that the words you write tonight will still be easy to read 100 years from now. You dip the nib into the ink, being careful not to take too much. You begin to write. You move the pen slowly across the paper. Scritch, scritch, scritch. The sound of the nib on the thick paper is very quiet, but in the silence of the room, it sounds like a tiny insect walking. You write down the time, midnight. You write down the wind, whole gale from the west. You write down the state of the sea, very heavy spray reaching the gallery. Your handwriting is neat and careful. In a place where everything is wild and messy like the storm, the neat rows of words in the logbook make you feel like you are bringing order to the world. This is your moment of silence. You stop writing for a second and look at the ink drying on the page. It goes from a wet, shiny black to a dull, flat, dark grey. You listen to the tower. The night shift is a quiet time for thinking. You think about all the other keepers who have sat at this very desk. You think about the storms they saw and the ships they saved. You realize that you are part of a very long chain of people. You are just one link, but if you break, the whole chain fails. It is a big thought, but it does not make you feel scared. It makes you feel proud. You record the oil consumption. You remember the marks you made on the tallyboard in the oil room. You write down exactly how many gallons the lamp has drunk since sunset. Then, you write a short note about the repair you made to the window. Apply putty to lower pane on windward side. Whistle stopped. Glass secure. It is a short sentence, but it means a lot. It means you were watching, you were listening, and you took action. You feel a sense of completion as you finish the entry. You look at the previous pages in the book. You see entries from last winter and the winter before that. Some pages have shaky handwriting, perhaps from a keeper who was very old or very tired. Other pages are written in beautiful flowing script with big loops on the letters. Every page is a story of a night spent in the dark, watching the sea. You see a note from 5 years ago that says, "A great wave broke the glass in the oil room." You imagine the freezing water rushing into the tower and how hard that keeper must have worked to keep the light going. Your night, even with the gale, seems a bit easier when you read about the troubles of others. You pick up a small wooden box filled with fine white sand. This is called a pounce pot. Before people had blotting paper, they would sprinkle this sand over the wet ink to soak it up so the page wouldn't smudge. You shake a little bit of the sand over your writing. It looks like a light dusting of snow on the words. You wait a few seconds, then you tilt the book and pour the sand back into the box. The words are now dry and set. They are part of the history of the Lighthouse now. You close the heavy book with a soft thud. You stay at the desk for a moment, just resting your hands on the leather cover. The wood of the desk feels cool against your skin. You feel a sense of peace. The night shift is not just about the lamp and the oil. It is about the record. It is about making sure the story of the night is told. You have done your part. You have been the witness. You have seen the storm, and you have written it down. The world might be sleeping, but the logbook knows that you were here and that you were awake. You stand up and push the small stool back under the desk. You feel a bit more formal now, as if the act of writing has reminded you of the importance of your uniform. You button your waistcoat and pull your heavy wool coat back into place. You look at the desk one last time. The pen is back in its holder, the ink jar is closed, and the logbook is waiting for tomorrow. You turn back to the center of the room, where the great light is still spinning. The watch continues. You have recorded the past, and now you are ready to face the rest of the night. You walk back to your chair, but before you sit, you reach into the inner pocket of your waistcoat. This pocket is close to your heart, and it is where you keep your most precious thing. You pull out a small rectangular object, wrapped in a piece of soft silk. You unwrap it slowly, being careful not to let the silk catch on the rough skin of your fingers. It is a small picture, a photograph, held in a simple frame made of dark wood. This is a microhistory detail. In the 1800s, these small pictures were called carte visite. They were tiny enough to fit into a pocket or a small book, and they allowed people to carry the faces of their loved ones wherever they went. You hold the picture up to the golden light of the lamp. It shows your family. There is your wife, wearing her best dark dress with a white lace collar. There are your 2 children, standing very still and looking very serious, as people did back then when their picture was being taken. You look at their faces. Even though the picture is just shades of grey and brown, you can remember the colour of your daughter's hair and the way your wife's eyes crinkle when she laughs. Looking at them makes you feel a sharp pang of loneliness. But it also makes you feel very proud. This is a simple historical fact. Being a lighthouse keeper was a job that often kept men away from their families for many months at a time. Some lighthouses were on the land, where families could live in small white cottages nearby. But here, on a rock station in the middle of the sea, there is only room for the keepers. You are here for 6 weeks, and then you go home for 2. During those 6 weeks, this little piece of paper is the only way you can see the people you love. It is your link to the world of grass, trees, and warm beds. You take a moment of silence. You do not look at the storm or the lamp. You just look at the picture. You hear the wind screaming outside. But in your mind, you are back in your small kitchen at home. You can almost smell the soup cooking on the stove and hear the sound of the children playing on the floor. The tower feels very big and very empty around you. You realize that you are not just keeping the light for the ships you don't know, you are keeping it so that the world stays safe for the people in this picture. You are working for them. The tower gives a heavy shiver as a wave hits the base. You tighten your grip on the frame. You feel a deep sense of duty. If you did not stay awake, if you did not tend the light, the world would be a more dangerous place. You are like a soldier on a far-off wall, protecting the peace of those back home. You feel a glow of warmth in your chest that has nothing to do with the lamp. It is the warmth of love and the strength of a promise. You promise to provide for them, and this job is how you do it. You run your thumb over the smooth glass of the frame. You notice a tiny bit of dust on the wood and wipe it away with your sleeve. You want to keep this picture perfect. You think about where they are right now. They are probably asleep in their beds, the children tucked under heavy quilts. They might even be dreaming of you. You hope they know that you are watching over them, even from this high stone tower in the middle of a gale. The light you tend tonight helps make the world a place where they can sleep in safety. You feel a bit of the loneliness start to fade. You are not really alone. You have their faces with you. You have the memory of their voices. You think about the letters you will write when the storm dies down and the supply boat comes. You will tell them about the great light and the way the waves looked like white mountains. You will tell them that you are warm and that you are thinking of them. You realize the night shift is easier when you have a reason to do it. You wrap the picture back in its silk cloth. You do it gently, folding the corners just right. You tuck it back into your waistcoat pocket and feel the solid shape of it against your chest. It feels like a little shield. You stand up a bit straighter. You are the watcher, the guardian, and the father. You have a family to get back to, and that means you must do your job perfectly. You must stay awake. You must keep the light turning. You must make sure the tower stays strong. You walk around the room one more time. The light from the lens catches the brass and makes it sparkle. The room feels a bit more like a home now. It is your home for tonight, and you will take care of it as well as you take care of your house on land. You look at the clock. The hours are passing. Every tick of the clock brings you one step closer to the end of your shift and one step closer to the day you go home. You feel a quiet joy in your heart. You stop by the window and look out at the dark horizon. You cannot see the land, but you know it is there. You know that somewhere over the edge of the water there is a small house with a light in the window. You like to think that they have left a lamp burning for you, just as you are burning this giant lamp for the world. You feel a deep sense of peace. You are the watchman, and your heart is full. You are ready for the rest of the night. The clock on the wall strikes 12. It is midnight, the very middle of the night. On any other night, the tower would be quiet, but tonight the storm has grown into a giant. The wind is no longer just a roar. It has become a screaming sound that never stops. It feels like a giant invisible animal is trying to tear the glass right out of the iron frames. The ocean below has become a roaring beast. Even from this high up, you can hear the deep, heavy thrum as the waves hit the rock. It sounds like a drum as big as a house being struck by a hammer made of stone. You stand in the center of the room, looking at the windows. The rain is hitting the glass so hard, it sounds like millions of tiny pebbles. You can see the glass bending just a tiny bit under the pressure. This is a simple historical fact. The glass in a lighthouse is designed to be flexible. If it were too stiff, it would shatter like a dinner plate when the wind pushed it. But because it is thick and held by soft putty, it can lean in and out, just like the tower itself. You watch the glass move a fraction of an inch and then push back. It is a battle between the wind and the window. This is your moment of silence. You do not move. You do not touch anything. You just stand there and feel the power of the night. You feel very small, but you do not feel weak. You are inside the only thing that is standing still. You realize that the storm is not angry. It is just very, very big. It does not hate the tower, and it does not hate you. It is just the world being wild. You feel a strange sense of calm. You are a guest in the middle of a great event. You are seeing the ocean in a way that people on land will never understand. You notice a specific detail about the light tonight. This is a micro-history detail. You see St. Elmo's fire dancing on the outside of the copper bird net. St. Elmo's fire is not real fire. It is a glow that happens when there is a lot of energy in the air during a storm. It looks like little blue and white sparks or ghost fingers touching the metal wires. Sailors of the past thought it was the sign from a saint telling them they would be safe. You watch the blue glow flicker in the dark. It is beautiful and strange. A little bit of magic in the middle of the noise. You walk to the gear system to check the timing. Even with the tower shaking, the gears are moving at the exact same speed. The governor, with its spinning brass balls, is doing its job perfectly. You feel a deep respect for the men who designed this. They knew that a storm would come, and they built a machine that could ignore it. You put your hand on the brass casing of the gears. It feels warm and steady. It is a small, quiet heart beating inside the roaring chest of the storm. You think about the ships again. By now, any ship near the coast will have its sails pulled tight or its engines working hard to stay away from the land. The sailors will be looking for the one thing that stays the same, your flash of light. You imagine a young sailor seeing the blue glow of St. Elmo's fire on his own ship, and then seeing your golden beam cut through the dark. He would feel a huge sense of relief. You are his North Star. You are the proof that the world has not ended in the waves. The storm seems to reach a peak. A wave hits the tower so hard that a bit of your coffee sloshes out of the mug on the shelf. The floor gets a slow, heavy tilt to the side. You wait for it to come back. It feels like the tower is taking a long, deep breath. After a few seconds, it settles back to the center. You take a deep breath yourself. You are still here. The lamp is still burning. The glass is still holding. The night shift continues, and you are the master of your stone castle. You look at the lamp. The flame is perfectly still. It is amazing that while the whole world is screaming and moving outside, this little circle of fire stays perfectly calm inside its glass chimney. It is the eye of the storm. You feel a bond with that flame. You are both doing the same thing. You are staying steady in a world that is trying to move you. You are the watcher, and you are not going anywhere. The midnight hour is passing, and you are ready for the morning to come, one slow tick of the clock at a time. You move toward the side of the room where the curved stone wall meets the glass. Even though you have a chair, sometimes you just want to feel the tower itself. You lean your head against the cool granite of the inner wall. The stone feels very different from the glass or the brass. It is heavy, cold, and incredibly solid. This is your moment of silence. You close your eyes and let the side of your face rest against the rough grey surface. You can feel the heartbeat of the building. Every time the wind hits the tower, a low hum travels through the stone and into your bones. It feels like the tower is talking to you in a very deep, quiet voice. This stone is your greatest protector. This is a simple historical fact. The granite used for this lighthouse was brought here on big wooden barges from a place called Cornwall. The men who cut these stones spent months making sure each one was perfect. They used a special tool called a plug and feather to split the giant rocks. Because the stone is so dense and heavy, it holds onto the cold for a long time, but it also blocks out all the noise of the crashing water. When you press your ear to the wall, you don't hear the splashing. You only hear the deep vibration of the earth itself. You notice a small detail on the wall right near your eye. This is a microhistory detail. It is a small, numbered lead plug hammered into a hole in the stone. This is a benchmark. Long ago, the men who built the tower used these marks to make sure the building was perfectly level. They wanted to be sure it wasn't leaning to one side as they stacked the thousands of tons of rock. You run your finger over the cold lead. It is smooth and soft compared to the rough granite. It is a tiny reminder that this whole giant building started as a plan on a piece of paper. It was built with care, inch by inch, and that is why you are safe tonight. You feel the strength of the old tower through your skin. It has been standing here for over 100 years, and it has felt thousands of storms just like this one. It has been hit by lightning, buried in snow, and beaten by the sea. but it has never moved. You feel a sense of peace as you lean there. You realize that you don't have to hold the tower up. The tower is holding you up. You can let your muscles relax for a minute. The stone is doing all the hard work of fighting the wind. You are just here to make sure the light stays on. You pull your head away from the wall. There is a small cold spot on your skin where the granite touched you. You rub your cheek with your hand to bring the warmth back. You look up at the ceiling. The stone walls curve inward at the top to meet the iron roof. It looks like the inside of a giant shell. You feel very tucked away, like a pearl inside that shell. The night shift can be a heavy thing, but when you trust the walls around you, the weight doesn't feel so bad. You take a deep breath of the warm, oily air and feel your heart slow down. You are part of the tower now, and the tower is part of you. You move away from the stone wall. The night is still deep, and the storm is still shouting outside the glass. To keep your mind sharp and your hands busy, you decide it is time for the bright work. This is what sailors and keepers call the metal parts that need to be polished. In the lantern room, there is a lot of metal. There are the handles on the doors, the knobs on the cabinets, the heavy bolts in the floor, and the big brass railing that goes all the way around the giant lens. If you leave these things alone, the salt air will find its way inside and make them look dull and dirty. But a good keeper wants his tower to shine like a new penny. Even in the middle of a gale, you walk over to your storage shelf and reach for a small round tin. It is a heavy tin made of lead and tin, and it has a lid that fits very tightly. This is a microhistory detail. Inside the tin is a thick pink paste called polishing paste, or sometimes Potts pomade. It has a very strong, sharp smell that reminds you of lemons mixed with a bit of vinegar. It is a smell that wakes you up. You also take a piece of cloth called scrim. Scrim is a special kind of fabric made from flax. It is very tough and scratchy, which makes it perfect for scrubbing, but it does not leave any little bits of thread or fluff behind. In a room full of glass and oil, you cannot have any fluff flying around. You put a small dab of the pink paste onto the corner of the scrim. It feels a bit gritty between your fingers, like very fine sand or crushed seashells. You walk over to the big brass railing that circles the great light. You start at the joint where the rail meets the floor. You begin to rub the metal. Rub, rub. You move your hand in small, steady circles. At first, the brass looks dark and cloudy, almost like the color of an old bell. But as you work, the pink paste begins to turn a deep, messy black. This is a good sign. It means the paste is eating away the tarnish, the thin layer of dirt and salt that the air has left behind. You can feel the metal getting warm under your hand. The harder you rub, the more heat you create. This heat helps the paste work even better. You move your hand further along the rail, following the curve of the room. Your arm begins to feel a little bit tired, but you don't stop. There is something very relaxing about the rhythm of the work. Rub, rub, rub. It matches the tick-tock of the clock on the wall and the swish of the lens above your head. You feel like you are part of the machinery. You are the one who keeps it looking new. This is a simple historical fact. Lighthouses used a lot of brass and bronze because the sea is a very hungry enemy. If the railings and handles were made of plain iron, the salt in the air would turn them into red rust in just a few days. Rust is like a disease for metal. It makes it flaky and weak, but brass is a noble metal. It is made by mixing copper and zinc. It does not rust. Instead, it just gets a thin green or brown skin called tarnish. By polishing the brass every night, you are not just making it look pretty, you are protecting the metal from the salt. You are making sure it stays strong for the next 100 years. Once you've covered a long section of the rail with the black paste, you take a second, clean piece of cloth. This one is softer, made of old cotton. You begin to wipe the black mess away. As the cloth moves, the true color of the brass comes out. It is a beautiful, bright yellow, almost like liquid gold. It is so shiny that you can see your own face in it, though your face looks very long and funny because of the curve of the rail. You see the reflection of the giant lamp in the metal. Every time the light sweeps past, the railing flashes with a bright golden spark. This is your moment of silence. You stop rubbing and stand back for a second. You turn off your hand torch and let the room go dark, except for the great light. You watch the beam of the lens as it travels around the room. As the light hits the section of the rail you just cleaned, the brass catches the light and throws it back. It looks like a ribbon of fire is running around the room. It is very beautiful. You look at the other side of the room where the metal is still dull and dark. The difference is amazing. You feel a deep sense of satisfaction. You have taken something that was dirty and made it bright again. You move to the door handles. They are shaped like small, smooth eggs. You polish them until they feel warm and slippery in your palm. You spend a long time on the tiny knobs of the clockwork cabinet. Each one is like a little jewel. You notice a small scratch on one of the knobs. You rub it extra hard with the paste until the scratch starts to fade away. You want everything to be perfect. You think about the keepers who sat in this room 50 years ago. They touched these same handles. They used the same kind of paste. You feel a bond with them. You are all part of the night shift, and you all share the same pride in your work. You look at your hands. They are covered in black streaks from the polish and the salt. Your fingernails have a little bit of the pink paste under them. You don't mind the mess. In a lighthouse, your hands are your best tools. They should look like they have been working. You take a rag and wipe the worst of the blackness off your skin. Your hands feel a bit tingly from the grit in the paste. It is a good feeling. It makes you feel awake and alive. The smell of the polishing paste is very strong now. It has filled the lantern room, mixing with the scent of the hot lamp oil and the salty dampness of the storm. It is a clean, busy smell. It is the smell of a place that is being looked after. You think about the people on the ships. If they could see inside this room, they would see a man polishing brass while the world falls apart outside. It might seem like a small thing to do, but it matters. It shows that you are in control. It shows that the tower is ready for anything. You finish the last of the railings and the bolts on the floor. You stand up and stretch your back. Your muscles feel a bit stiff from leaning over, but it is a good kind of ache. You look around the room. The brass is glowing, the lens is turning, and the windows are holding firm. You feel a deep sense of order. The night shift can be a long and lonely time, but when you have a job to do, the hours go by much faster. You have made your stone fortress shine like a palace of light. You pack your tin of paste and your dirty rags back into your wooden box. You will have to wash the cloths in the morning using a bit of soda and hot water, but for now, you just enjoy the view. You sit back down in your chair and look at the rail. Every time the lens turns, a golden flash travels across the metal, following the light. It is like a dance. You feel calm and happy. You are the watchman, and you have done your duty. The metal is clean, the tower is safe, and the light is bright. You sit back in your wooden chair and look out through the glass. The storm is still there, but your mind begins to drift away from the stone tower. You start thinking about the ships that are out there in the dark. Somewhere, miles away across the white-capped waves, there is a captain standing on a wooden deck. He is holding onto a railing just like yours, but his railing is wet and cold. He is peering through the rain, his eyes searching for any sign of hope. Then, he sees it. He sees your flash. 1, 2, a pause. Then 1, 2 again. He looks at his charts and smiles. He knows exactly where he is. Because of your work, he can turn his ship away from the hidden rocks and find the deep, safe water. This is a simple historical fact. Every lighthouse has a character. This means the light flashes in a special pattern that belongs only to that tower. Some lighthouses flash every 5 seconds, and some have 2 quick flashes followed by a long silence. This is the only way a sailor can tell the difference between a lighthouse in England and a lighthouse in France. Your tower has a double flash. It is like a secret code you are sending out to the world. You feel a deep sense of pride knowing that you are the one sending that message. You are talking to people you will never meet, helping them get home to their own families. You take a moment of silence. You stop thinking about the mechanics of the lamp and the oil. You just imagine the path of your light. You see the beam stretching out for 20 miles. It travels over the crests of the waves, through the thick curtains of rain, and across the empty miles of the deep ocean. It is a bridge made of light. You feel like a giant reaching out your hand to guide a small child. The ships are big and strong, but compared to the ocean and the storm, they are very small and fragile. They need you. They need the night shift to be steady and true. This is a micro-history detail. You think about a tool the captain might be using right now, called a sextant. It is a beautiful brass instrument with mirrors and a small telescope. The captain uses it to measure the angle between your light and the stars or the horizon. Even in a storm, if he can see your light for just a second, he can use his sextant to find his way. You think about the brass of his sextant and the brass of your railing. You are both part of the same system of safety. You are the fixed point, and he is the traveller. Together, you make sure the sea is a place where people can go and return safely. You feel a sense of peace. The night shift can feel like a lonely struggle against the wind, but it is actually a very social job. You are connected to thousands of people. You are connected to the sailors, the merchants bringing tea and silk, and the families waiting on the docks. You are the guardian of the commerce of the world. As long as your light is turning, the world keeps moving. You look at the golden beam one more time as it sweeps past. It looks so calm and powerful. It doesn't care about the wind. It just does what it was born to do. You take a deep breath and feel a glow of satisfaction. You are the watchman, and the ships are safe. You leave the high glass world of the lantern room for a moment to check on the level below. This is the living level, the place where you sleep and eat when you are not standing watch. As you walk down the small flight of stairs, the air changes. It is no longer just the dry, oily heat of the big lamp. Here, the air is thick with a different kind of warmth. It is the smell of a home. It smells of old wood, a bit of wool, and the sweet dusty scent of a coal fire. You step into the round bedroom, and your eyes are immediately drawn to the small black stove in the corner. The stove is a beautiful piece of ironwork. It is painted a deep matte black, and it stands on 4 small legs that look like the paws of a lion. This is a simple historical fact. Many lighthouses in the 1800s used stoves made by a company called Carron. These stoves were famous all over the world because they were made of very thick iron that could hold on to heat for a long time. Even when the fire went out, the iron would stay warm for hours, acting like a giant hot stone in the middle of the room. This was the only way to keep a stone tower from feeling like a cave. Without the stove, the damp sea air would make the blankets feel wet and the walls feel like ice. You walk over to the stove and kneel down on the wooden floor. You can feel the heat coming off the metal. It is a soft orange heat that makes your face tinkle. You reach for a small tool hanging on a hook by the wall. This is a micro-history detail. It is a fire iron or a poker made of solid black iron with a small loop at the end for your thumb. You use the poker to gently open the small door of the stove. As the door swings open, a bright orange light spills out onto your boots. You see the coals. They are no longer black. They are a glowing, pulsing red, like the heart of a small sun. You use the poker to move the coals around. You are looking for the clinkers. These are the bits of burnt stone and ash that can block the air from getting to the fire. You pull the poker across the grate, and you hear the soft clink-clink of the metal against the iron. You clear away the grey ash, which you call the rubbish, and let it fall into the tray below. Now that the air can move, the fire begins to wake up. You see tiny blue flames dancing on top of the red coals. They look like little spirits jumping in the dark. This is your moment of silence. You stay on your knees, just watching the fire. You do not think about the storm or the light or the oil. You just watch the way the light from the coals dances on the curved walls of the bedroom. The room is small and perfectly round, and the shadows of the chair and the bed look like giants moving in the dark. You feel very safe here. The walls are so thick that the roar of the wind is just a soft hum, like someone singing a lullaby in the next room. You feel the warmth soaking into your legs and your chest. It is a deep, heavy warmth that makes you want to close your eyes. You reach for the coal hod. This is a heavy metal bucket shaped like a scoop. It is full of small, shiny black stones. This coal was brought to the island by the supply ship during the late autumn, just before the big storm started. Every bag had to be carried up the iron ladder and the stone stairs by hand. Because of that, you treat every piece of coal like it is a piece of gold. You take a small shovel and pick up 3 pieces of coal. You place them carefully onto the red embers. You hear the soft top-tack as the stones hit the iron. Almost immediately, the coal begins to crackle. Snap, pop. A tiny puff of yellow smoke rises up into the chimney. On top of the stove, there is a small metal shelf called a trivet. Sitting on the trivet is a small tin pot of water. You touch the side of the pot with your finger. It is very hot. You like to keep the water there because it adds a bit of dampness to the air. If the air gets too dry, it can make your throat feel sore. The steam rises from the pot in a thin white ribbon, disappearing into the shadows of the ceiling. It makes the room feel even more cozy. You feel like a captain in his cabin, tucked away from the rest of the world. You look at your bed. It is built into the curve of the wall, like a bunk on a ship. It has a thick mattress filled with straw and wool. Over the mattress are 3 heavy blankets made of the same dark wool as your coat. You reach out and touch the top blanket. It feels warm because it has been sitting near the stove all night. You imagine how good it will feel to crawl under those blankets when your shift is over. You will be able to hear the storm, but you will be as warm as a loaf of bread in an oven. The stone tower will be your shell, and the fire will be your sun. You think about how important this little stove is. In the old days, keepers had to share a bed to stay warm, or they had to keep their coats on all night long. But now, with the Carron stove, you have a room that feels like a real home. You can take off your boots and dry your socks by the fire. You look at your socks, the thick Guernsey ones you are wearing. You notice a bit of dampness on the toes from the spray in the lantern room. You decide to sit for just a moment and hold your feet near the stove. You feel the heat move through the wall and touch your skin. It is the best feeling in the world. The stove makes a low, contented sound. It is the sound of the metal expanding as it gets hotter. Tink. Tink. It is a friendly sound. It tells you that the fire is growing and that the room will stay warm for the rest of the night. You look at the small window in the bedroom. It is a tiny circle of glass set deep into the stone. You can see nothing but blackness outside, but you see the reflection of the orange fire in the glass. It looks like a small star trapped in the stone. You feel a deep sense of honor in your work. You are the one who keeps this fire going. You are the one who makes this lonely rock a place where a person can live. You stand up and brush the dust from your knees. Your body feels heavy and relaxed from the heat. You know you must go back up to the light, but you carry the warmth of the bedroom with you. You take one last look at the stove. The red glow is steady and strong. The shadows are soft. The room is a perfect circle of peace. You feel a sense of pride in your night shift home. It is not a grand palace, but it is strong, it is dry, and it is warm. You walk toward the stairs, your boots making a soft sound on the wooden floor. As you leave the room, you feel the cool air of the stairwell, but it doesn't bother you. You have the fire in your mind. You have the promise of the warm blankets waiting for you. You are the watchman, and you have made sure that your fire is bright. The storm can roar and the waves can crash, but in the heart of the tower, the coals are red and the world is safe. You begin the short climb back to the glass room, ready to finish your watch. You walk back up the stairs from the bedroom to the lantern room. You can feel the change in the air before you even see the sky. The tower feels different. The heavy, deep shaking that has been going on all night is starting to fade. It is like a giant fever is finally leaving the body of the world. You step into the glass room and look at the clock. It is 4 o'clock in the morning. This is the dog watch, the time when the night is almost over, but the sun is not yet up. It is the time when you feel the most tired, but tonight you feel a sense of quiet excitement. You have survived the peak of the winter gale. You walk to the window and listen. This is your moment of silence. The wind is no longer a screaming monster. It has turned into a long, tired sigh. It still whistles through the copper bird net, but the sound is lower, like a deep voice hummed through a closed door. You look down at the sea. The waves are still big, but they are no longer white mountains. They are dark, heavy hills of water. They hit the base of the tower with a thump instead of a boom. The spray does not reach the glass anymore. The ocean is getting tired, just like you. This is a simple historical fact. Most lighthouse keepers were part of a group called Trinity House. This group has been looking after the lights around the coast of England for hundreds of years. They had very strict rules about the end of the night shift. You could not just blow out the lamp and go to sleep as soon as you saw a little bit of light. You had to wait until the sun was fully above the line of the water. This was to make sure that any ship coming home in the early morning mist would still have a guide. You are part of that tradition now. You are waiting for the sun to give you permission to rest. You walk over to the desk and pick up a small object. This is a micro-history detail. It is a tally slate. A tally slate is a small rectangular piece of flat black stone held in a wooden frame. Next to it is a slate pencil, which is just a thin piece of softer white stone. Before the final entry in the big leather logbook, keepers used the slate to make quick notes about the weather. It was easier than using the ink in the big book when you were tired. You take the slate pencil and draw a small line. You write the words, wind dropping, sea calming. The stone pencil makes a soft scritch sound. It is a very old way of writing, and it feels good in your hand. You look at the glass panes of the lantern room. They are no longer clear. During the night, the salt from the sea spray has dried on the glass. It looks like a thick white frost. It is so thick in some places that you cannot see through it at all. You know that as soon as the sun comes up, you will have to go out onto the gallery and wash it off. But for now, you just enjoy the pattern it makes. It looks like maps of strange new lands. You run your finger over the salt on the inside of the glass where a little bit of water leaked in. The salt is grainy and rough, like sand from a beach. The light in the sky is changing. It is no longer pitch black. It is a deep, smoky grey. You can see the horizon now, the long, flat line where the water meets the air. This line is very important. It is the first sign that the world is still there. You watch as the grey turns into a pale, ghostly blue. It is a very cold colour, but it feels like the most beautiful thing you have ever seen. It means the night shift is coming to an end. You have watched the world through its darkest hours, and now you are seeing it wake up. You check the lamp. It is still burning with a steady, golden flame. The heat is still radiating out, keeping the room warm and dry. You feel a bit of pity for the lamp. It has worked so hard all night, and soon it will be turned off and left to go cold. You walk around the lens, giving the brass one last look. The polish you put on earlier is catching the new morning light. The railing looks like a circle of silver now instead of gold. Everything in the room looks different in the dawn. The shadows are longer and softer. The sharp edges of the machinery seem to fade into the grey air. You look at your hands. They're steady. You are tired, yes, but you are not shaky. You are tired, yes, but you are not shaky. The work of the night has given you a kind of strength. You have wound the weights, polished the brass, fed the oil, and watched the storm. You have been a good husband to the tower. You feel a sense of peace that you only get when a big job is almost done. You think about the ships again, now that it is light. They don't need your beam as much, but they still need to see the tower itself. The white paint on the stone will be their guide now. A small bird, a sea swallow, lands on the gallery railing outside the glass. It shakes its wings to get rid of the water. It looks small and wet, but it is alive. Seeing the bird makes you smile. It is another sign that the storm is over. The wild animals are coming out of their hiding places. You watch the bird for a minute. It looks at you through the glass with a tiny black eye. You feel a connection to it. You both stayed safe through the gale. You both saw the dark, and now you are both seeing the light. You take a deep breath. The air in the room is starting to feel a bit stale, so you open one of the small brass vents at the bottom of the wall. A blast of fresh morning air rushes in. It is very cold and smells strongly of salt and wet stone. It feels wonderful on your skin. It wakes you up and clears the smell of the oil and the coffee from your head. You stand by the vent for a moment, letting the cold air fill your lungs. It is the smell of the new day. It is the smell of the new day. It is the smell of victory. You look at the clock. It is almost 5 o'clock. The line on the horizon is starting to glow with a tiny bit of yellow. The sun is coming. You stay at your post, watching the light grow. You are the watchman, and you will not leave until the sun takes over your job. You feel a deep sense of honor. You have held the line. You have kept the flame. The night was long and the storm was big, but you were bigger. You are ready for the morning. You are ready for the sun. The grey world is turning into a world of color. You stand by the glass, and your eyes are fixed on that thin line where the sky and the sea meet. The dark, smoky blue is starting to break. A tiny sliver of bright, burning orange peeks over the edge of the water. It looks like a coin made of fire being pushed up from the deep. This is the moment you have been waiting for all night. The sun is coming to take your place. You feel a deep, slow wave of relief wash over you. The storm has passed. The night is gone, and you have kept the light burning until the very end. You walk over to the great light. It is time for the ritual of the morning. This is a simple historical fact. For hundreds of years, the rules of Trinity House said that the lamp must be put out at the exact second the top edge of the sun touches the horizon. You cannot be a second too early, and you cannot be a second too late. You stand with your hand on the brass knob of the oil lamp. You watch the sun. As the orange circle grows larger and the first real beam of daylight hits the glass of the lantern room, you turn the knob. You hear a soft hiss as the flow of oil stops. The golden flame, which has been your friend for the last 12 hours, begins to shrink. It goes from orange to blue, then to a tiny white spark, and then it is gone. A thin ribbon of white smoke rises from the wick and curls up into the glass chimney. The lantern room feels different instantly. The heart of the tower has stopped beating for the day. The room is no longer filled with a golden glow. Instead, it is filled with the pale, honest light of the morning. You feel a bit sad to see the flame go, but you are also very ready for the quiet. You take a moment of silence. You stand in the middle of the room and just look around. Now that the lamp is off, the room is very still. The clockwork gears have stopped turning because you did not wind the weights again. The giant lens is sitting still. The brass railing is no longer flashing with fire. It is just a calm yellow metal. You hear the seagulls. They are returning to the island now that the wind has died down. Their cries are sharp and clear in the morning air. It is the sound of the world waking up. You feel like a person who has just come back from a very long journey, even though you have been in this room the whole time. This is the time for your final task. You reach for a special tool kept in a wooden cupboard. This is a micro-history detail. It is a copper pail filled with fresh water and a natural sponge. Because the storm was so big, the glass is covered in a thick white crust of salt. If you leave it there, the sun will bake it onto the glass, and it will be very hard to get off later. You open the small iron door that leads out onto the gallery, the walkway on the outside of the light. As you step outside, the air hits you like a cold, wet cloth. It is freezing, but it feels wonderful. The wind is just a gentle breeze now, tasting of salt and fresh rain. You stand on the metal grating and look out. The ocean is a beautiful deep green now. The waves are small and lazy, white foam bubbling around the black rocks below. You can see the mainland far away, a thin purple line on the horizon. You feel like you are on top of the world. You dip your sponge into the copper pail and begin to wash the glass. The salt melts away, leaving the panes clear and bright. You work your way around the circle, the cold water dripping down your arms. It is a good way to wake yourself up one last time. You finish the cleaning and step back inside, closing the heavy iron door. You are shivering a bit now, and your hands are red from the cold water. You walk to the desk and open the big leather logbook for the last time. You write the final entry. 05:05, sun risen, lamp extinguished. All well. You sprinkle the white sand over the ink, blow it away, and close the book. The record of the night is finished. Your night shift is over. You feel a massive weight lift off your shoulders. You have done your duty. You have kept the ship safe. You take off your heavy wool coat and hang it on its hook. You feel so light without it, almost like you could float. You pick up your empty coffee mug and your bag. You take one last look at the lantern room. It is clean, quiet, and peaceful. The sun is filling the room with light, reflecting off the prisms of the lens. It looks like a giant sleeping jewel. You turn off your hand torch and walk toward the stairs. You are moving slowly now. Your legs feel like they are made of lead, and your eyes feel heavy. You walk down the stairs to the bedroom. The warmth of the cold stove is still there, a soft, welcoming heat that smells of home. You go to the small sink and wash the oil and polish from your hands. The water is cool and soft. You look at your face in the small mirror. Your eyes are a bit red, and you look tired, but you look happy. You see the reflection of the morning sun in the tiny porthole window. It is a new day. You walk to your bed and pull back the heavy wool blankets. They feel so soft and warm. You sit on the edge of the bed and take off your boots. Your feet feel wonderful as they come out of the leather. You wiggle your toes in your thick Guernsey socks. You stand up and pull a small wooden latch to close the heavy curtains over the window. You want the room to be dark so you can sleep. The room becomes a cozy, dim cocoon. The only light comes from the tiny red glow of the dying coals in the stove. You crawl into the bed. The mattress of straw and wool crunches softly under your weight. You pull the 3 heady blankets up to your chin. The wool is scratchy but so warm. You bury your face in the pillow, which smells faintly of lavender and clean cloth. You feel your body sinking into the bed. All the tension of the night, the shaking of the tower, and the roar of the wind just melts away. You are safe. You are warm. You are finished. You listen to the sounds of the tower one last time. You hear the distant cry of a gull and the soft, rhythmic hush-hush of the waves against the rock far below. It sounds like a heart beating. The tower is not shaking anymore. It is solid and still. You feel like the stone is protecting you, holding you in its giant hand while you rest. You think about the ships that are now sailing in the sunlight, their captains no longer worried about the dark. You feel a deep sense of peace. You are the watchman and your watch has ended. The sun is climbing higher now, turning the world into a bright, busy place. But here, in the heart of the stone tower, it is quiet and dark. You let your breath go in a long, slow sigh. Your eyes close. You are no longer the watcher. You are just a man, tired and happy, sleeping in a fortress of stone. The morning has come, and the world is safe. The sun is rising. The sky is turning from grey to a soft, warm pink, like the inside of a seashell. The clouds are moving away, leaving a clear, wide space for the day to begin. You can feel the light pressing gently against the heavy curtains of your room, but it cannot reach you. You are tucked away in the deep, quiet, dark. The cold of the night is gone, replaced by the steady warmth of your blankets and the fading glow of the iron stove. You feel a deep sense of safety in your bones. The storm has done its worst, and yet here you are, dry and still. The sounds of the ocean have become a soft song, a gentle rhythm that pulls you deeper into rest. There is no more work to be done. The oil is stored, the brass is shining, and the lens is resting in its glass house high above. You have earned this peace. You have stood between the ships and the rocks, and you have won. Now you can let go of the world, you can let the day happen without you. You are wrapped in the strength of the granite walls, and nothing can disturb your sleep. The air in your room is still and sweet. You feel your heartbeat slowing down, matching the slow pulse of the sea. You are drifting now, like a boat on a calm lake. The night was long, but it is over. You are a guardian who has finished his task. You are a watcher who has seen the dawn. Feel the weight of your body in the bed, the softness of the wool against your skin, and the quietness of the stone. You are home. You are safe. You are at rest. The sun is rising. The gates are opening. The watch is ended.